It all starts on a devastated battlefield, littered with the fallen, where a single sword stands buried in a warrior's back. A massive horde of terrifying monsters and beasts marches mercilessly against humanity's final line of defense. Meanwhile, wounded and frightened survivors take shelter in a makeshift camp just behind the massive protective wall. A young boy starts asking his uncle a question, only to catch a flick on the forehead and get corrected to call him his older brother instead. This man is Tenma Tsukishiro, an F-rank hunter who would prefer the kid at least call him by his actual name. The young boy is Kyoya Hidaka, an ordinary human who hasn't awakened yet, and he complains about whether it's right for a hunter to hit a civilian. Tenma tells him that an F-rank hunter with zero talent or skills for 20 years knows nothing about what it truly means to be a real hunter. He points toward Kakeru Amamiya, a legendary SSS rank hunter currently giving a speech to everyone from high atop a stage. It all began 20 years ago, when mysterious portals appeared out of nowhere, unleashing terrible monsters that brought the world to ruin. To combat this threat, the system chose regular people and granted them special powers to fight back as hunters. It was these fearless hunters who managed to save humanity just as it stood on the absolute brink of extinction among the strongest. An elite group known as the Final 11 fought valiantly to prevent total annihilation for everyone. However, the monsters also had extremely powerful leaders called demons, whose strength far surpassed that of human warriors. Because of the overwhelming power of these demons, humanity was backed into a corner and forced to retreat to its last line of defense. Amamiya reveals that 6 of the final 11 have already fallen, leaving only 5 behind as the demon army rapidly approaches. Despite the desperate situation, he assures the crowd that humanity still holds one last fighting chance for survival. It serves as a single, unique opportunity to undo every single tragedy that has unfolded up to this point. The woman then releases the golden relic into the air, causing the object to float directly before everyone present. A massive, brilliant flash erupts across the sky, illuminating the entire area with incredibly potent golden energy. He explains that the special item creates a portal capable of sending someone back in time 20 years into the past. However, only one person will be able to step through this portal to try and stop the terrible demon invasion in the past. Tenma remembers that this period was when the demons were preparing, as the crowd begins chanting Amamiya's name at the top of their lungs. The people beg Amamiya to go, calling him the strongest hunter of all and the only one capable of changing their ultimate fate. Sitting on the ground, Tenma remarks that it must be nice to go back in time, asking Kyoya what he would do since he was just a child back then. Kyoya says that while weak people like them cannot go back, he would use the chance just to see his parents' faces one more time. Hearing the boy's heartfelt answer, Tenma places a hand on his head in a gentle, comforting way before the entire stage. The desperate crowd continues to chant the name of the powerful hunter Amamiya without stopping. The female hunter touches Amamiya's shoulder and tells him it is high time he accepts this vital mission to return to the past. She reinforces that he is the only one who can do this, pleading with him to defeat the demons and save the entire world. The hero finally nods in agreement, determined to secure humanity's future no matter what comes next. However, Amamiya suddenly senses an imminent danger coming from above and yells in sheer desperation for his companion to dodge. Massive, shadowy claws rain down from the sky like meteors toward the stage and everyone gathered below. Reacting swiftly, the female hunter extends her arms and activates a bright magic shield to try and contain the devastating strike. But the barrier takes a direct hit at full force, triggering violent explosions as the surrounding people scream in utter panic. The pink energy shield fails to withstand the enemy's overwhelming pressure and shatters completely in midair. The woman is left in complete shock upon realizing her defensive barrier was destroyed with absolute ease by that power. A colossal, shadowy spike descends relentlessly, destroying everything in its path with absurd strength. The gigantic projectile hurtles straight toward where the two were standing, causing Kyoya to scream for his uncle in total panic. Without hesitating, Tenma grabs his nephew with all his strength and hurls him far out of harm's way to save him from the deadly impact. Kyoya flies through the air and reaches out his hand, watching his uncle stay behind directly in the path of the incoming strike. As the boy cries and screams helplessly, Tenma simply looks back with a calm, reassuring smile on his face. The crushing blow finally strikes the ground, triggering a massive explosion and blanketing the entire area in smoke and debris. Kyoya lands hard on the ground with a severe head injury, attempting to call out for his uncle with the little strength he has left. Opening his eyes slightly, the youth sees his uncle's heavily bruised and bleeding face right next to him. He continues crawling desperately across the destroyed ground, trying to reach his protector's injured body. With great difficulty and coughing up blood, Tenma offers a weak smile and repeats that he had already told him to call him older brother. Right behind them, the portal of golden light begins to shine with incredible intensity, enveloping the entire location. A system screen appears floating before Tenma, announcing that the world's temporal distortion will finally be corrected. The system then confirms that the legendary time regression item has been successfully activated at that critical moment. The final message reveals that the designated target for returning 20 years into the past is the F-rank hunter, Tenma Tsukishiro. An immense beam of golden light shoots up toward the heavens, leaving everyone nearby completely awestruck by that power. When the brightness finally fades, nothing remains but smoke and rubble where the time travel portal once stood. The female hunter looks around frantically and asks who on earth just stepped into the portal, given that the warrior Amamiya is still standing right there. Amamiya stands speechless and whispers that this cannot be happening, appearing deeply concerned over the fatal error. The system issues red alerts regarding a temporal anomaly and announces that a correction protocol will execute in 30 minutes. Tenma realizes he has traveled through time, but worries because an F-rank warrior like himself could never stop the demons alone. A blue screen pops up confirming that the regression was a success, showing that he has reverted back to 24 years old with 0 power. Staring at the floating screen displaying scrambled information, he realizes in total shock that he genuinely managed to return to the past. Still on his knees in the middle of a peaceful forest, Tenma wonders if he is truly living in the years that had long been left behind. Suddenly, he hears a strange cry echoing nearby and instantly goes on high alert at the frightening noise. Intrigued and cautious regarding the sound he just heard, he begins sprinting quickly through the trees to investigate. Hiding behind a thick tree trunk, he spots a small pack of green goblins armed with hatchets and wooden clubs. He realizes he is inside a portal and feels frustrated with himself for still feeling afraid of low-level monsters like goblins. To get out of there, he needs to find the exit or clear a quest, but he knows doing so without any skills is practically impossible. All at once, a red screen pops up displaying a countdown timer with just over 24 minutes remaining. At that moment, a sharp blade enters his line of sight, about to strike the unsuspecting monsters. The goblins let out surprised squeals as they register the sudden approach of a threat they hadn't detected earlier. In a fraction of a second, a swift and precise strike slices the monsters clean in half, spraying blood across the forest grass. Tenma watches in astonishment as one of the goblins' heads rolls on the ground, wondering what on earth just happened right in front of him. He feels relieved upon deducing that another hunter is in the forest, thinking that if he asks for help, he can make it out of this portal alive. However, stepping out from the shadows is a colossal goblin warrior, surrounded by a dark aura and holding a bloodstained sword. Terrified out of his mind, Tenma hides and recognizes the creature as Chulin, a feared monster who uses otherworldly combat techniques. This entity is classified as a named monster, a type of creature that is extremely rare and dangerous even for veteran hunters. He panics as he recalls the lives this monster took. Just as another hunter runs past screaming for help through the woods, the panicking hunter warns that someone is ruthlessly wiping out both the monsters and the hunters themselves in this place. Suddenly, the fleeing warrior is forced to a dead halt as he runs straight into a terrifying masked executioner blocking his path. The young hunter stands completely paralyzed with fear, utterly unable to process the bizarre situation he suddenly got dragged into. The mysterious creature slowly lifts its heavy sword, preparing to deliver a fatal strike against the helpless young man. The blade comes down at an impressive speed toward the hunter's neck, who can only widen his eyes in the face of impending doom. At the very last second, Tenma leaps from his hiding spot and tackles the young man aside, saving him from being sliced clean in half. The enemy's strike slams into the ground with absurd force, carving a fissure into the earth and generating a massive shockwave. Tenma groans in pain from the hard impact of the fall, but keeps a firm grip on the young man as dust and debris rain down on them. The rescued youth stares at his savior with a shocked expression, unable to believe someone actually risked their life to help him. Without wasting time on explanations, Tenma grabs the boy's arm tightly and pulls him up with determination to snap him out of it. He yells for the kid to run, and both sprint at top speed through the forest as the monster begins giving chase close behind. The executioner watches the two humans flee from the center of the destruction he caused, calmly preparing to stalk his prey. The creature lets out a sinister growl and flashes a bizarre grin full of razor-sharp teeth, enjoying the thrill of the hunt. They keep running out of breath between the gigantic trees, and Tenma thinks to himself that he needs to find a safe spot to rest real soon. Exhausted, Tenma falls to his knees and laments his terrible physical endurance, while the kid wonders what kind of bizarre monster that was. Still trying to catch his breath, Tenma raises his head and focuses his gaze on a specific detail present on the rescued hunter's armor. Upon analyzing the crest engraved on the metal shoulder plate, he realizes in shock that it belongs to the famous Night Raven Guild. He asks if the boy belongs to that guild, and the kid nods, explaining that his group was supposed to be guarding the entry to this portal. Tenma's heart races as he comes to the realization that he is standing on the exact day and place of the tragic Night Raven Guild incident. On that fateful day, the entire guild and even the rescue team sent after them were completely wiped out by a powerful monster inside an F-rank portal. Overcome with panic upon remembering that terrible historical massacre, Tenma decides he needs to find a way to escape as fast as humanly possible. He then asks the young man if he has a spare weapon to lend him, suggesting that the two of them escape together to save their skins. The young man smiles and nods, quickly opening his inventory screen to pull out an extra sword for his savior. But in brutal fashion, a sharp blade drives straight through the tree trunk behind the youth, impaling his chest without mercy. The hunter coughs up blood and lets out a confused whisper, looking down, unable to comprehend how he got struck from behind so suddenly. Under the force of the lethal blow, the spare weapon he was holding slips from his lifeless hands and drops heavily onto the forest grass. Without missing a beat, Tenma ducks down and firmly grabs the hilt of the sword that the young hunter dropped to the ground. Right after, the executioner leaps down from above with his bloodied blade raised, bringing down a vertical slash against the MC. He manages to block the incoming strike at the absolute last moment, gritting his teeth against the tremendous force of the sword impact. However, the monster's absurd strength blasts him backward, sending him skidding violently across the forest floor. He ends up crashing hard against the trunk of a massive tree, dropping his weapon and getting the wind completely knocked out of him. Completely floored by the sheer power of the hit, the man falls face first onto the ground next to the metal sword. Spitting out blood, Tenma bitterly regrets nearly dying in such a pathetic way after taking a single hit from the enemy. The goblin executioner walks toward him with steady, deliberate steps, holding his swords and ready to finish the job. Suddenly, the red system screen displays a new warning indicating that only 4 seconds remain until the protocol activates. Lacking the strength to move, the MC stares at the numbers flashing down from 3 to 2, wondering what on earth that means. He laments returning to the past only to perish in seconds, wondering if the outcome would have been different if Amamiya were here instead. The hunter grits his teeth amidst his own blood, feeling immense guilt for being the one responsible for ruining that final chance. Tears streak down his face as the counter hits 0, watching humanity's last hope of salvation fade away completely. At that precise moment, the special protocol is successfully executed, and the system begins fixing every single one of Tenma's flaws and shortcomings. A new blue notification reveals that he has just acquired an X-rank trait called Talentless Adjustment. The system explains that this special ability multiplies his earned experience points by 100,000 times from here on out. He is left utterly stunned by the message, trying to process if the experience boost is truly 100,000 times and not just 100. Because he suffered severe injuries, he gains the endurance skill, which immediately receives the insane experience multiplier. Multiple floating level-up screens flash rapidly around Tenma as the level of his new skill skyrockets at an unbelievable speed. Within seconds, his endurance skill hits level 10, reaching the maximum cap permitted by the global system. He cries with emotion, remembering that in his entire past life as a hunter, he was never able to raise a single skill by even 1 level. Now it has been maxed out instantly, reducing incoming damage by 28% and allowing him to keep fighting. With his pain dulling and his senses renewed, Tenma feels his body responding again and firmly grips the hilt of his metal sword. The goblin executioner swings a brutal finishing strike into the ground, only to be surprised when he finds his target is no longer there. Tenma reappears a few feet away, leaning firmly on the blade of his sword while exhaling at a steady, calm pace. The system confirms that the talentless adjustment trait is actively correcting his former lack of battle aptitude. Flashing a confident smirk, he finds it mind-blowing that the balance of the world itself was altered just to aid a failed hunter like him. In his thoughts, Tenma apologizes to his nephew Kyoya for not being able to stay by his side and protect him to the end in that other timeline. He swears he will alter the fate of that world ruined by demons so he can meet the boy again in a peaceful, happy future. He will use the massive experience multiplier to grow stronger at top speed and shift the course of human history once and for all. With his eyes gleaming with determination, Tenma raises his blade against the opponent and vows to rewrite everyone's tragic fate. The two warriors stand off in the clearing, while the divine passive remains active, greatly increasing his chances of acquiring new skills. The hunter finds it unbelievable that he maxed out such a vital defensive skill simply by enduring a devastating attack from the enemy. Gripping the sword hilt with both hands, he feels a renewed surge of confidence, knowing he now stands a real chance of making it out alive. Sensing the shift in his prey's aura, the goblin executioner lets out a furious growl and tightens his grip on his twin swords. Without further hesitation, the masked monster lunges forward in a rapid leap toward the hunter, swinging a highly dangerous double strike. Instead of dodging, Tenma roots his feet to the ground and swings his blade to intercept the incoming attack head-on. The weapons clash violently, generating sparks and triggering the MC's insane experience multiplier once again. At the exact moment of impact, the system displays a new blue notification confirming he has learned level 1 swordsmanship. Thanks to the divine effect, his new combat skill begins leveling up instantaneously right in the middle of the direct clash. The hunter manages to channel this surge of strength and pushes the goblin executioner back, parrying the strike with supreme skill and control. The monster skids across the forest grass as he gets pushed back, visibly surprised by the sudden leap in the human's combat ability. Confused by his opponent's unexpected power, the executioner lets out an annoyed squeal and observes him with renewed focus. Looking down at his blade, Tenma stares in disbelief upon seeing that his new sword technique has already reached the absolute max level. He reflects on how people need to train for years to master a weapon, coming to the conclusion that his new power is truly insane. The hunter squeezes his grip and feels that the sensation of holding the weapon has completely shifted due to the perfect mastery gained at level 10. He tests it out with a quick flick, spinning the sword through the air and delivering a clean, precise slash that cuts through the wind with ease. The masked monster ignores his opponent's shock and leaps high into the sky, preparing another crushing overhead strike, but Tenma sets his stance perfectly and blocks the aerial impact with his blade, holding his ground with far more stability than before. The clash of their colossal strength unleashes a devastating shockwave, cracking the surrounding earth and kicking up clouds of dust and pebbles. Tenma presses back as he feels the heavy weight of the enemy's blow, while the system alerts him that both his maxed skills have activated at once. He lets out a fierce roar and channels all his power to force his sword against the opponent in a massive burst of effort. With a swift maneuver, the hunter deflects the goblin's blades and fires off a nimble counterattack that slashes clean through the air. Both fighters land and slide backward, creating a solid amount of distance between them to reset and reevaluate the flow of the fight. The goblin executioner lets out a bizarre laugh and begins twirling one of his swords in the air. Seemingly enjoying the fierce challenge, Tenma takes note of the massive gap in sheer power, realizing that merely defending won't be enough to put his opponent down. The creature charges at high speed, spinning his twin sword so fast it creates a deadly, slicing whirlwind right in front of him. Tenma uses every ounce of his technique to clash against the goblin's storm of strikes, searching for an opening in his defense. The enemy chuckles as they exchange rapid blows, and the MC knows he must give his absolute focus to read the very next movement. As he locks his entire mind onto the battle, a new system window appears, confirming he has unlocked level 1, Perception. Due to the divine multiplier, the hunter's new perception technique levels up instantaneously, right in the heat of physical combat. The blue screen confirms that his perception skill has successfully hit level 10, reaching the absolute max limit allowed by the system. The goblin executioner charges with ferocity toward the hunter, shrouded in a bright, powerful purple magical aura. As the monster leaps to strike him down, Tenma stands completely still on the ground, adopting an extremely calm and focused posture. His eyes widen as he notices his field of vision suddenly shift, becoming vastly wider and far more detailed than ever before. Thanks to the max-level perception, he can clearly track the exact trajectory of his opponent's incoming attack in slow motion. With a focused mind, the man moves with surgical precision, celebrating mentally as he predicts exactly where the attack will slice. He dodges the enemy blade with sleek, subtle grace, positioning himself to land a flawless counterstrike right on the monster. The fight drags across the ruined terrain as both warriors trade rapid maneuvers amidst the dust rising from the cracked earth. Tenma perceives everything around him with crisp clarity, from the position of the grass to the gentle sway of tree leaves in the wind. He stands blown away by such incredible sensory precision, concluding that perception is easily one of the most valuable skills in existence. The hunter wonders if this is the exact worldview that legendary hunters possess, while the goblin lets out an irritated growl. The goblin warrior adjusts his battle stance with agility, gearing up for another violent surge against the human. With an eerie blue glow flashing in his eyes and a macabre grin, the creature shows he still has plenty of tricks left up his sleeve. The monster delivers a swift slash with his sharp claws through the air, trying to catch the MC off guard at close range. Tenma reacts just in time, using the flat of his metal sword to parry the opponent's heavy claws at the absolute last millisecond. The opponent then leaps backward into an acrobatic backflip, twirling his long swords in a sweeping defensive arc through the sky, capitalizing on the enemy's retreat. The MC lunges forward and executes a swift slash to break the masked monster's guard. He dives forward with his sword pointed right at the goblin's chest, putting every bit of speed he can muster into the strike. But the monster's agility is off the charts, successfully dodging and leaving nothing but an afterimage behind on the field. Tenma registers the extreme speed of the next attack heading his way, realizing he won't be able to block the blow in time. In a fraction of a second, he decides to take a rapid step back to slip out of the lethal reach of the goblin's blade. Thanks to that clutch last-second dodge, the system notifies him that he has just acquired Level 1 footwork. The 100,000 times multiplier triggers once again, boosting his new movement technique straight to max level in seconds. Feeling light and nimble on his feet, he executes a spectacular acrobatic leap backward, completely dodging his opponent's slash. The MC lands smoothly at a safe distance, while the monster strikes empty ground, kicking up a thick curtain of dust. He glances at the space between them and catches himself by surprise, commenting that he didn't intend to jump back quite that far. The goblin executioner growls in sheer frustration as he sees the human slip out of his clutches again, tightening his grip on his twin swords. The hunter tests his new stance, feeling his steps become insanely light and fast with his movement skill fully maxed out. He bursts forward in a high-speed dash, simultaneously activating his maxed swordsmanship and movement techniques in one offensive push. Flying low toward the opponent with his sword raised high, he focuses with firm belief that he finally has the power needed to win. The green-skinned warrior widens his eyes in horror upon seeing the unbelievable speed with which Tenma's blade hurtles straight at him. In a flash of rapid movement, the MC passes right through his opponent, landing a flawless, devastating slash across his body. The monster stands frozen for a split second, feeling blood start to trickle from a fine cut on his face from the swift attack. With a confident, victorious smirk, the hunter turns around and mockingly asks what the monster thought of that strike. Completely enraged by the wound, the executioner spins around instantly and swings an insane sword strike to tear Tenma apart. The clash between the two warriors sets off violent bursts through the forest, snapping tree branches and tearing up the dirt floor. Utilizing his flawless footwork, the hunter slips past a frenzied barrage of rapid slashes with smooth, acrobatic spins. The monster roars in pure rage as every single one of his swings connects with thin air, cranking the speed of his attacks even higher. Their blades clash repeatedly at superhuman speeds, culminating in a massive blast of energy that lights up the dark woods outside the portal. A blonde woman in a sharp suit waits patiently, watching the bluish energy concentrate around the entrance. She is Yuna Shiragane, a C-rank hunter complaining angrily into her phone about what kind of idiot manages to get stuck inside an F-rank portal. She lets out a bored sigh, noting that the time limit has expired, and agreeing with the official guidelines of the Hunter Association handbook. Yuna hangs up the association call and activates a blue holographic display over her palm to run a quick data check. She reads that a rescue request was logged due to time running out, but finds it bizarre for such a thing to happen with a rookie guild. With a tired sigh, she stretches out and guesses that the members of that guild are probably just hanging out drinking inside. The system indicates the deployment of Level 2 spatial teleportation, launching a beam of bluish light straight into the portal entrance. Upon teleporting into the forest interior, she comes face to face with a gruesome scene packed with sliced goblin corpses. In absolute shock over the carnage, she covers her mouth and notices the invaders made an unbelievable mess right at the entrance. She starts walking through the wrecked woods, shouting out for members of the Night Raven Guild to try and pinpoint their position. Arriving at a clearing, she freezes and wonders in horror what on earth could have carved such a colossal, terrifying crater into the ground. Nervous and breaking into a cold sweat, she realizes a battle of such massive scale should never be taking place inside an F-rank portal. Peeking from behind the thick trees, she spots two distant figures standing in the dust and wonders fearfully who they could be. To her complete horror, the terrible goblin executioner is still standing, but now missing an arm and covered in severe wounds all over. On the opposing side, Tenma also stands firm, despite being battered, utterly exhausted. And holding a blood-stained sword, Yuna stands frozen upon feeling the monster's oppressive aura, trembling in fear as she realizes that creature is no regular goblin. The executioner lets out one final growl of frustration and turns his back on his opponent, slowly backing away from the brutal clash. Suddenly, the monster catches everyone off guard by speaking in a deep, gravelly voice, revealing he possesses his own distinct identity. The creature formally introduces himself as Ku Shulin, locking his terrifying gaze onto the MC before taking off for good. Yuna feels her heart pound wildly as she hears the goblin speak human language with perfect clarity, something completely unheard of for her. The monster firmly warns that he will definitely settle this score in the future, while Tenma simply watches him with a tired, distant stare. Next, Ku Chulin leaps toward the horizon with insane power, vanishing rapidly into the upper tree canopy. A powerful gust of wind and dust sweeps across the empty clearing. The second the terrifying opponent disappears from sight, completely. Silence finally settles back over the wrecked clearing, leaving only the young hunter standing in the midst of all that smoke and destruction. Coughing through the dust cloud that kicked up, the blonde tries to pull her senses together and process what she just witnessed. She rushes toward Tenma as she sees him collapse to his knees, frantically asking if he is all right and if he can hear her voice. Yuna reveals she is with the rescue team and asks where the rest of the guild warriors are, gasping at the sheer severity of his wounds. The hunter slowly begins losing consciousness, while the blonde keeps begging him to hang in there and not pass out in the woods. With a weak voice, Tenma begins whispering an incomplete sentence, leaving the rescuer confused and unable to make out his words. Even standing on the threshold of death, he flashes a faint smile and teasingly whispers that he was actually the one who saved her life. He asks her to never forget that fact, and right after, blacks out completely, collapsing unconscious right into Yuna's arms. The hunter's limp body slides down onto the grass, leaving the rescuer in a panic, completely unsure of how to handle the situation. Sometime later at the hospital, Yuna sighs in frustration with her face in her hands, having zero clue how she will write the official report for this case. In a different room, the bright lights on the ceiling of a hospital bay flicker softly, illuminating the quiet, peaceful room. Tenma finally opens his eyes, finding himself lying comfortably in a hospital bed, still a bit dazed from everything that happened. He pulls the curtain aside slightly and observes the sunny courtyard outside, confirming he is inside a secure medical wing of the association. The hunter raises his hand and taps the air to open his system status window, wanting to verify if everything he experienced was actually real. As he focuses his gaze on the glowing interface appearing before him, he confirms with deep emotion that every single event truly occurred. His skill list displays stats like strength, agility, swordsmanship, and martial arts, all maxed out at level 10 after that single battle. He touches the holographic screen and smiles upon reading that he has the legendary talentless adjustment trait active on his character sheet. The young man realizes the sole reason he was able to go toe-to-toe with a named monster was entirely thanks to this divine power. The detailed description for talentless adjustment reveals that his experience gain was amplified to an absurd 10 million%. However, he notes with curiosity that the special effect of that legendary X-rank trait still remains locked for now. He concludes that the absurd experience boost acts as a system balance fix for him possessing absolutely zero innate talent. Tenma wonders if the system would have granted this exact same wild advantage had the hero Amamiya returned in time in his place. But he quickly realizes that someone insanely talented and powerful right from awakening like Amamiya would never need a hand like this. Letting out a long sigh, he decides to stop dwelling on these theories and focus purely on what he needs to do to save the future. At that moment, he hears the room door swing open and catches a female voice commenting in relief that he has finally woken up from his coma. It is the hunter, Yuna Shiragane, who walks over to the bed mentioning that doctors expected him to take another full week to wake up. Looking down at his bandaged hands, the young man is amazed by his own rapid recovery rate, considering he doesn't even possess healing skills. He glances at a fresh notification displaying level 10 natural recovery, the skill responsible for insanely accelerating his body's healing process. He realizes he gained this passive technique while unconscious, but gets cut off by Yuna, who snaps at him for ignoring her. When he calmly asks who she is, the girl gets instantly annoyed and raises her voice, reminding him that they met inside the portal. She flashes her official ID and introduces herself as Yuna Shiragane, a C-rank hunter who pulled him out after he passed out inside the portal. The hunter says it finally clicked, remembering that the terrifying warrior Ku Chulin fled right after that woman's sudden arrival. He recalls that in the original timeline, that association investigation team was supposed to be brutally slaughtered by the monster. Tenma confidently states that he was actually the one who saved her life, and the girl ends up nodding, partially admitting to it. She shares that a surviving hunter from the Night Raven Guild gave a statement confirming just how powerful the dual-wielding warrior was. Learning that someone else managed to make it out of that portal alive, the MC lets out a subtle sigh and offers a small smile of relief. But Yuna puts on a serious expression and says that statement is precisely the problem, leaving the young man thoroughly confused by the news. She reveals that the association chose not to officially recognize his victory over the monster due to the massive rank gap involved. To the girl's absolute surprise, Tenma turns his back with total indifference and calmly states that he couldn't care less about official credit. Yuna follows behind him, asking if he isn't frustrated, given that this was his massive chance to blow up and become famous overnight. In silence, he remembers that the demon's true long-term objective is to break out of the portals and rule over the human world. He suspects that demons are already hiding among regular people on Earth and knows it is best to keep his abilities a total secret. In a hurry to leave, the young man says he is heading out and starts walking, while the hunter yells for him to hold up a second. She demands a clear explanation for his real reason behind sneaking into that dangerous guild portal in the first place. The MC turns sideways with a detached look and lies with absolute calm, saying he only went in there to make a quick buck. He makes up a story about trying to swipe a few valuable mana crystals that the raid team warriors might have dropped along the way. He steps out of the room and shuts the wooden door behind him with a firm thud, putting an end to the conversation and leaving her behind. Alone in the room with her arms crossed, the C-rank hunter huffs in annoyance and mutters to herself about what a weird guy he is. Now dressed in his casual everyday clothes, the MC begins walking thoughtfully through the busy, lively city streets. He watches people selling hunter gear and weapons at makeshift street stalls, completely immersed in thoughts regarding his mission. A few schoolgirls in uniform pass by, laughing and chatting happily beside him, showing the peaceful routine people enjoyed back in those days. Taking in the movement around him, he feels a warmth in his chest, seeing how peaceful and vibrant that past world was before getting destroyed. He continues his way and finally reaches the large complex of white residential apartment buildings where his old childhood home was located. The hunter punches in the passkey on the electronic keypad at his apartment entrance, hearing the familiar chimes of the security system. Opening the wooden door and taking his first step into the quiet apartment, he smiles and notices that absolutely nothing has changed around the place. Worn out from all the commotion, the young man throws himself backward onto the soft living room couch, relaxing his muscles with a long, comforting sigh. He lies staring at the bedroom ceiling in absolute silence for a few moments, letting his thoughts flow with total freedom. Glancing up at his own hand raised in the air, he asks himself with utter seriousness what his next move must be to prevent the annihilation of Earth. He remembers that under normal conditions, the association's elite hunters would be investigating the truth regarding the Night Raven Guild. He covers his face in frustration, realizing he is an idiot for forgetting that the incident was swept under the rug and, to the rest of the world, never happened. The hunter decides to pull up his status sheet once more, staring at the details of that powerful passive skill he received after regression. He realizes the past has already begun to shift ever since he gained this unique technique, accepting that the fate of Earth now rests solely on his shoulders, clenching his fist with ultimate resolve. He vows to become the strongest of all to stop the tragedies that bring about humanity's downfall. He recalls being an avid reader of a hunter news magazine back then, which gives him deep knowledge of major historical events. But the young man starts breaking into a cold sweat upon realizing a massive issue. He simply cannot recall the minor details and exact dates of those events. Suddenly, he remembers how his entire worldview dramatically shifted the exact second his perception skill was activated. He sits up quickly on the couch with glowing eyes, coming up with the brilliant idea that he could also try expanding his mental capacity. To put his plan into motion, he grabs an extremely complex textbook on advanced quantum physics to read and study sitting at a study desk. He forces his brain to process the difficult pages, hoping to unlock some kind of memorization skill. However, the young man stares at the complex formulas with a completely blank expression, trying his absolute best to decode the material. He ends up slumping face first onto the library desk with a dramatic sigh, crying over the fact that he cannot understand a single word. Deciding to give up on that crazy idea, he slams the quantum physics book shut and thinks to himself that it was a total waste of time. However, a blue system screen pops up floating right before his eyes with a notification that high-level intellectual activity has been detected. Next, the 100,000 times experience multiplier kicks in once more, driving his intelligence level straight to the absolute max limit. The system confirms that his intelligence skill has reached level 10, causing the hunter to burst into laughter as he sees his plan actually worked. The youth opens his fresh info panel to carefully break down the added perks that came with this mental stat upgrade on his sheet. The display shows boosts to his magic proficiency and mana, and he assesses that the change wasn't as immediately visible as the perception technique. Tenma closes his eyes for a second and thinks that if he combines his intelligence and perception skills together, he will be able to recall everything. He concentrates deeply in the middle of the quiet library, radiating a subtle glowing aura as he locks his focus onto his mind. The blue screen alerts him that he is tapping into his subconscious memory realm, running both maxed-out skills simultaneously, with his entire mental capacity focused. The young hunter visualizes the prompt to force his brain to retrieve past events. Scenes from his past life on the ruined earth begin flashing before his eyes like frames from an old memory reel. Because of this, he acquires the memory search skill, which instantly hits level 10, allowing him to recall every detail perfectly. Back to the reality of the library, the young hunter remains seated and motionless at the study desk as other students pass by in the distance. With a confident, victorious grin plastered across his face, he mutters that he finally got what he needed to launch his plan. He remembers the exact event he needed and makes his way to a local coffee shop called Bumchan to put his ideas into motion for good. He pulls his phone out of his pocket and checks the lock screen, which reads exactly 2:47 on that sunny afternoon. He completes his payment at the register and lets out a sigh of relief for managing to remember his bank account password after so long. But his joy is short-lived when he sees his balance sitting at a pathetic 2,782 yen, noting that staying broke sucks big time. The coffee shop barista hands the iced coffee cup to Tenma, politely informing him that his order is ready right at the counter. Holding the plastic cup packed with ice cubes, the young hunter takes a long, refreshing sip of his drink while walking down the street. Sitting at a balcony table overlooking the city buildings, he kicks back and thinks to himself that he finally feels alive again, watching the street traffic from above. He vows to hunt down and eliminate every hidden demon before they grow way too powerful. He plans for his first target to be the growth demon, the very first of those terrifying creatures to reveal itself to humanity. Suddenly, his cell phone on the table begins vibrating intensely, displaying an incoming call from a man named Hiroki Gondo. The MC picks up the phone and stares at the screen, puzzled, trying to dig through his memory to figure out who this person calling him is. When he answers with a simple hello, the man on the other end yells rudely, calling him a temp substitute and barking orders about a stone harvest. The voice commands him to head straight to Saikyo Shichioji City, prompting Tenma to activate his new level 10 memory search skill. He recalls that the call is from a temp agency manager from back when he scraped by doing odd jobs as an F-rank hunter to fill out guild rosters. The agency manager barks at him to hurry up and get moving, but the MC responds directly and calmly that he won't be able to make it. The young hunter lies with a deadpan face, justifying his refusal by claiming that unfortunately, he lacks enough cash to pay for taxi fare. He peacefully pulls the device away from his ear while waiting for the irritated blow-up from the man on the other end of the line. Shortly after, the manager indeed decides to send a private ride, and a yellow taxi is seen cruising at high speed through the city streets. Sitting in the back seat of the car, the MC chuckles knowing the boss hung up in his face, yet ended up dispatching a ride anyway. He takes advantage of the trip to review his floating stats in the air once more, commenting with satisfaction on his impressive status numbers. The vehicle finally pulls up near a scenic mountain region lush with greenery, where the hunter squad was already standing by for him. He walks toward the group of warriors assembled right at the entrance of a glowing, bluish fissure in the middle of the forest. Hands in his jacket pockets and sporting a faint smirk, he thinks excitedly that he will have plenty of chances to test out his new powers. He stops right in front of the blue portal entrance and locks his focus onto the other members assigned to this dungeon raid mission. A green-haired hunter turns around rudely and complains loudly that the MC is extremely late. The man is Kuki Kazuma, a D-rank guildmaster, who demands he move it and asks if the rookie will take responsibility if they lose precious time. But Tenma simply locks eyes with him, with an icy, terrifying glare, causing the arrogant leader to back off scared and stammer out what his problem is. The system fires off an alert confirming he has passively acquired intimidation, which immediately begins leveling up at lightning speed. The skill debuffs the stats of lower-ranked targets by 9%, and Tenma celebrates mentally for scoring yet another unexpected advantage. Keeping his cool, Tenma extends his palm and asks if they could lend him any kind of useful combat gear. Still slightly unnerved and intimidated by the guy's energy, Leader Kuki orders a minion to hand over any generic weapon to the sub-Kuki commands the raid group to follow him into the blue portal, while the other hunters whisper laughingly that the boss seemed pretty rattled. Once inside the dungeon, an unlucky green goblin gets sliced clean in half with zero chance of defense by one of the guild warriors. One of the fighters wipes sweat from his forehead after the simple skirmish, while Tenma and a young luggage porter wait further back in the tunnel. The light-haired hunter turns around and rudely barks at the porters to hurry up and clean out the remains of the fallen monsters. The young porter rushes nervously with his heavy pack to execute the order, while Tenma merely follows him with calm, slow strides. A firm hand grips the hilt of a metal dagger and drives it hard into the dead goblin's chest to extract the energy stone from its body. However, the rookie kid struggles immensely and shows visible fatigue trying to puncture the monster's tough hide with his tiny knife. Tenma steps up from behind and calmly asks if the kid happens to have a spare dagger to lend him, catching the boy completely off guard. The kid opens his travel pack pocket and hands over a leather-sheathed black knife to Tenma, passing it over meekly. Tenma takes the weapon and drives it into the monster's chest with absolute ease and surgical precision, spraying blood in every direction. The young porter stands frozen with his mouth agape, completely floored by the superhuman speed and power displayed by this rookie. As he extracts the loot from the slain monster, the system triggers once again and confirms he has acquired level 1 butchery. Thanks to the 100,000 times experience boost, the level of his new harvesting skill jumps insanely fast within seconds. His butchery skill hits level 10, allowing him to cleanly harvest 3 glowing golden mana stones in flawless condition. The porter stands jaw-dropped while holding the pristine crystals, as Tenma kneels down to wipe sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. With a calm demeanor and a subtle smirk, the F-rank hunter tells the young helper that it's time for the two of them to keep pushing forward. They advance through the dark cavern tunnel, which is filled with the carcasses of wolves and goblins wiped out by the main raid party. Further ahead, 2 hunters chat happily, commenting on how ridiculously smooth and easy the entire raid mission is running today. The white-haired hunter commands the squad to keep moving and rudely tells the porter to focus strictly on harvesting the stones. Tenma peacefully keeps watch over the area while the young helper works hard harvesting mana stones from the bodies of fallen wolves. The system confirms that the harvested demon wolf pelt was perfectly preserved and boasts an outstanding double plus F rank quality, rotting. Another holographic notice indicates that the collected wolf fangs also carry top-tier double plus P rank quality. The 2 main hunters glance back and comment awkwardly that they should keep moving, clearly impressed by the lightning speed of the harvest. As they walk, the MC reflects that the whole clear is going way too fast, simply because he used to take forever in the past. The young helper walks beside Tenma with eyes full of admiration and asks how he can become as fast and precise as him. Out of nowhere, a green goblin armed with a scimitar leaps from the cavern shadows and aggressively blocks the duo's path. The monster growls and bares his teeth, revealing a dark mark on his shoulder that signals he is some sort of pack leader. Tenma deduces that this creature managed to slip past the main group, while the kid notices with horror the leadership mark on its shoulder. Without showing an ounce of rush or concern, the MC extends his arm and calmly draws the sharp blade of his metal sword. He enters a combat stance with a locked focus, thinking excitedly that this unexpected encounter is precisely the kind of test he wanted. The helper backs away with trembling hands and screams in desperation for his companion to be extremely careful of the goblin's surprise push. The kid starts yelling in panic, recalling that Tenma is just a talentless F-rank hunter, leaving the guy with a deadpan sweat drop. Seeing the young porter's sheer terror, the goblin leader flashes a mocking grin full of sharp teeth, convinced he has an easy victory lined up. The creature signals with his claw and whistles into the dark, calling his packmates to ambush the pair right in the tunnel. Fast, heavy footsteps begin echoing across the damp stone floor, revealing that several other creatures are approaching in the darkness. In total, right behind the leader, 5 armed goblins step out of the tunnel shadows and fall into battle formation. The helper collapses to his knees, crying in terror over being cornered by 5 monsters, while Tenma merely lets out a bored sigh. The pack of monsters lets out furious shrieks and charges wildly toward Tenma, aiming to hack him to pieces with their weapons. With his eyes glowing a terrifying, intimidating shade of red, the MC activates his fresh psychological pressure skill. A massive surge of heavy, black energy erupts from Tenma's body, suffocating the monsters and instantly paralyzing them with fear. Under the crushing weight of panic, one of the monsters drops his knife and falls face first onto the stone as Tenma's intimidation levels up. Right after, another goblin drops his axe and slumps motionless onto his back on the stone as the skill keeps evolving rapidly. The remaining monsters lose their balance as well, hitting the floor in pathetic fashion, incapacitated by the crippling fear generated by the hunter. All 5 minions lie passed out on the stone floor, leaving only the pack leader standing, breaking into a cold sweat and shaking in shock. The goblin chief widens his eyes and stammers in terror on shaky legs, completely unable to comprehend the crushing power of this regular human satisfied with the field test of his new ability. The young man flashes an ironic grin, thinking to himself that this skill is fantastic. However, he catches a muffled thud beside him and turns around curious to check out what just went down behind him in the clearing. The young porter passed out cold from pure shock due to that heavy psychic pressure, even releasing a comedic soul float right out of his open mouth. Seeing the kid asleep on the ground, Tenma flashes a victorious smile, knowing he no longer needs to worry about hiding his powers around him. The hunter dashes forward at high speed toward the goblin chief, simultaneously activating max effects from his agility skill. He pulls off an impressive sequence of lightning-fast sword strikes, landing multiple silver slashes on the monster in the blink of an eye. The young man clashes his blade against his opponent's weapon with power and smirks, noting that now is the perfect time for a quick experiment. A blisteringly fast and loud exchange of blows follows inside the cavern, with bright sparks flying at every violent sword collision. The monster begins to tire and staggers backward, heavily out of breath and covered in deep, bleeding slashes across his body. He notes that fighting them didn't unlock new swordsmanship techniques, deducing that more advanced skills still demand real effort on his part. The hunter understands that his divine power makes learning basic techniques a breeze, but knows it doesn't change the fact that he lacks innate talent. He clicks his tongue in a quick gesture of slight annoyance over his own natural lack of magic aptitude, but maintains focus on the enemy. With a flawless spinning slash of his silver blade, the young hunter decapitates the enemy leader in a single ruthless horizontal cut. The lifeless body of the executioner goblin crashes hard onto the stone floor, while Tenma simply spins his sword and sheathes it back into the leather scabbard. At that exact instant, a fresh system alert flashes in the air to notify him that his talentless adjustment passive has reactivated. The hologram confirms that every single experience point gained from clearing that pack was multiplied by 100,000 once again. Tenma stands thoroughly confused upon seeing a red system screen pop up before him, announcing that he has reached level 20. He ponders that he shouldn't have gained XP since he didn't defeat the legendary monster, not expecting to hit max level quite so fast. The system launches into a brief breakdown, explaining that with his level capped, he cannot level up further until completing a breakthrough quest. The explanation continues, stating that this quest appears every 20 levels, and until completed, he will earn points instead of regular XP. The alert notes that these accumulated points are used to purchase items in the system shop, causing Tenma to tap the holographic screen out of curiosity. Upon touching the notification panel, the hunter catches a small static shock that makes him wince from the sudden prick. He wonders when the breakthrough quest will pop up and decides to hold off until later to figure out what to purchase with his new points. Tenma approaches the passed-out young porter and tells him to get up right now, warning him that it's time to clean up and harvest the monster loot. The kid wakes up groggy and confused, letting out a low grumble as he tries to figure out where he is inside that dark cavern. The moment he regains full consciousness, the porter looks at the ground and catches a massive fright, seeing dead goblins scattered across the stone. He screams terrified upon realizing the pack captain and every single monster were wiped out all at once. The kid asks what on earth happened there, and Tenma lies that someone else took them down, quickly calling him over to start harvesting work. Both kneel on the dirt floor and patiently begin pulling valuable cores and materials out of every single felled monster. As the porter strains to slice into one of the corpses, Tenma observes him silently out of the corner of his eye. The hunter decides to pull up his own blue holographic menu to review how his current stats look following the recent fight. The detailed status panel displays the name Tenma Tsukishiro with all his skills at level 10 and level 20 locked. He spots an alert icon flashing right alongside the locked level 20 warning, growing curious as to what that means. He reflects that his breakthrough quest hasn't popped up yet and that he can't just sit around waiting if he wants to keep hunting demons all at once. The hologram shifts to a red tint accompanied by an audio ping, announcing he has hit the absolute ceiling for F rank. The alert goes on to reveal that the difficulty of his breakthrough quest will increase significantly, but in exchange will grant a special reward. Tenma is taken aback, wondering what this sudden spike in difficulty for his upcoming breakthrough quest actually entails. He widens his eyes in utter shock as he reads the fresh, detailed information beginning to populate on the system screen right before him. He lets out a tense chuckle, thinking to himself that this situation is getting seriously complicated and dangerous for him. The young man keeps staring at the screen wide-eyed, completely blown away by the unbelievable details of the modification. He stands speechless before the panel, arriving at the conclusion that the whole thing is nothing short of pure insanity. Meanwhile, the young porter gathers a few orange mana stones from the ground and observes the hunter with a confused expression. Tenma starts chuckling softly, finding the whole thing amazing, which leaves the porter thinking in terror if the guy is some kind of weirdo. The screen explains that the difficulty spike will evolve his trait toward limit breaking, offering absurd advantages. He reflects that this limit break and evolution are completely distinct from any standard breakthrough quest a regular hunter would face. The panel confirms that all his skills will have their max level caps raised, and the system shop will upgrade to an enhanced version. With a confident smile on his face, Tenma realizes he will gain a massive surge in power the moment he ranks up to D rank. He remembers that if everything plays out like his past life, he will need to defeat a specific demon emerging from a portal in 3 days. This terrible monster is known as the Growth Demon, who in the future will rise to become a commander and bring humanity to ruin. In the middle of his thoughts, a small, floating blue window appears beside him, leaving the hunter slightly confused. The porter calls out asking if he's coming, and Tenma answers. He's right behind him while dismissing the notification. The blue alert reveals he has received a rare tier special weapon chest due to the effects of his unique talentless trait. Surprised to score a rare tier weapon, the young man quickly taps the holographic chest icon to open it without wasting a second. An insanely intense, blinding blue glow bursts from the screen, illuminating the entire silhouette of the hunter, kneeling in the cavern. Tenma reaches out into the blinding light and grips the hilt of a magic sword that begins materializing in his grip. The system congratulates the young man on obtaining the rare tier special sword Soul Eater, and he gazes at the glowing blade in awe later on outside the dungeon. The glowing blue portal remains active in the middle of the forest beneath a beautiful sunset. The young porter waves from afar to let the guild master know they are stepping out first, and Kuki Kazama wishes them a job well done. The kid smiles happily alongside his companion as they walk away from the entry of that newly cleared portal. Tenma watches them walk off and flashes a friendly smile, thinking to himself that Kyoya must be around 6 years old right now. He pulls out his phone to check his finances and spots a recent transfer of 50,000 yen made by Kuki Kazama. Intrigued, he remarks to Kuki that his daily payout was supposed to come through the agency and that the original rate was way lower. Kuki scratches his head awkwardly and explains that he sent a side bonus as thanks. Since everything ran so smoothly thanks to him, the guildmaster and his female companion say goodbye to the guy with a friendly wave and head back on their way. Tenma watches them leave and reflects that people instantly start showing respect the moment your combat abilities level up. Suddenly, the guy's stomach lets out a super loud rumble, making him realize he was in such a rush that he totally forgot he was starving. Feeling super hungry, Tenma decides to use his new cash to grab a bite, but gets cut short when his phone starts vibrating. The device screen displays a deposit of a mere 4,500 yen, docking the cost of the taxi fare. The hunter flies into a rage, seeing such a pitiful payout, and grips his phone tightly, while cursing out the person behind the transfer. Later that night, the young man decides to head over to a major city supermarket called a mart to pick up a few basic groceries, stepping into the produce section. Tenma holds up a bundle of super fresh broccoli and takes a deep breath to catch the veggie's pleasant aroma. He smiles, relieved, recalling that before the end of the world in his past timeline, seeing fresh produce was a total impossibility. While enjoying the moment with the greens, the young man senses someone approaching from behind and turns around curious to see who it is. It turns out to be Yuna Shiragane, the Hunter Association rep, who recognizes him and calls out surprised. Right in the middle of the aisle, Tenma asks if the association sent her to spy on him, but she snaps back, denying it, saying she's just shopping and questioning the broccoli. He calmly replies he was just taking in the fresh scent of the veggie, leaving Yuna super suspicious and determined to keep an eye on him. The hunter starts looking closely at the face of the girl with glasses, catching a strange feeling that she looks remarkably familiar. To clear his doubts, Tenma instantly triggers his memory search skill to dig through his old memories regarding her. The mental search uncovers the image of a woman who looks just like her, only older and sporting flashy combat gear. Armed with this revelation, the young man asks her directly if she has an older sister named Yuki Shiragane. Yuna stands in absolute shock at his question, while the hunter thinks to himself that it would be impossible for him not to know that famous figure. In his future memories, Yuki Shiragane was known as the Infinite Archer and was a core member of the legendary Final 11. She was also dubbed the Goblin Slayer, and Tenma remembers that in the previous timeline, her younger sister had been killed by monsters. The young man realizes that by rescuing Yuna inside the recent portal, he altered fate and prevented her sister from becoming that dark warrior. Having no way to explain all this, the guy simply replies that her sister is super pretty, leaving the rep confused by the compliment. He adds that Yuna looks a lot like her sister, causing her to turn completely red and flustered by the sudden comment. The hunter reflects that he needs Yuna's teleportation skill to assist him in the upcoming battle against the growth demon bluntly. Tenma holds out his hand with his phone and asks for her number, leaving the girl startled and clueless as to why he's in such a rush. Super embarrassed, she stammers that she doesn't mind giving her contact, but that things ought to follow a proper order. Tenma coldly explains that he wants the number to collect the debt for saving her life, leaving the girl furious for totally misreading the vibe, fuming over the shattered expectation. She snatches the phone from his hand roughly to type in her contact info. Yuna hands the device back, burning with rage, and yells, indignant at his attitude, leaving the guy clueless regarding her explosive reaction. The hunter holds his phone back a bit, startled and confused by the association rep's sudden blow-up. She stomps away, complaining out loud about being made a fool of, while Tenma merely watches her walk off without saying another word. The next day, the young man steps off a bus carrying his sword on his back and begins searching for the address saved on his phone. He inspects the sword he obtained the day before, noting its attack power sits at 30 points, 3 times higher than his previous one. The system reveals the blade is named Soul Eater and holds super rare rank, carrying a special effect that absorbs enemy souls. He knows that a good weapon alone won't be enough to beat the growth demon, making it essential to learn a superior swordsmanship technique. Thinking practically, the youth concludes that to truly master swordsmanship, he needs to seek out the greatest swordmaster in the world. Right after, he arrives before the large building housing the famous Kirishima family Kendo Dojo. The hunter steps into the hallway, stops before the massive dojo entrance door, and knocks lightly to announce his arrival. Receiving no immediate response, the youth decides to slowly push the wooden door open, noticing the place is unlocked. He steps inside, knowing that to confront the demon race, he will require a main skill focused on dealing massive damage to targets. The guy walks through the building, knowing the swordsman here was famous for slicing through mountains and skies with a single sword strike. He moves across the dark wooden floor of the dojo and spots a mysterious silhouette standing in the center of the silent hall. It is Taiyo. Kirishima, the legendary sword saint who became a beacon of hope for all humanity during times of crisis. However, the blue-haired man appears holding a pen and yawning lazily from having to wake up so early that day. Tenma keeps walking with firm steps toward the master, mentally gearing up for the important meeting. Heart pounding faster from the anxiety, the hunter realizes he is about to speak with a living combat legend. Drawing closer, the guy notices the floor around the man is completely covered in hundreds of autograph papers scattered everywhere. The sword saint lets out another long, tired yawn, showing zero energy or drive to do any training. He glances at Tenma and asks naturally if the young man is yet another fan who came all the way here to meet him in person. The man flashes a cocky grin and starts spinning the pen in his fingers, politely asking where the guy wants him to sign. The hunter recalls the heroic image of the master wielding his sword against a glowing horizon in his past life. In that memory, the sword saint's devastating attack was capable of splitting cloud layers in the sky and cleaving stone mountains in two. The young man knows that warrior's strength was flawless, but realizes the real man's personality is wildly different from the legend's. Taiyo Kirishima lets out an insanely loud laugh upon realizing the newcomer wants his autograph. He cockily claims it's only natural people want his signature since he will save the world, while a guy beside him drinks soda, finding it ridiculous. The man sipping from the cup thinks to himself that the sword saint manages to be even worse and more self-centered than rumors suggest. The hunter recalls that shortly after, rumors spread that the sword saint had mysteriously died following a cowardly demon ambush. Back in the present, the master with pen in hand looks at the youth and humorously asks if he wants him to sign his back. Tenma realizes he was always silly like this and calmly says he would actually like to ask the master to accept him as his swordsmanship disciple. Taiyo gets hyped and grabs him, telling him he should have just said so from the start, making the guy regret his choice and consider going back home. Shortly after, Tenma appears sitting properly on the office couch, with his combat sword leaning beside him against the wall. The master serves tea and confesses he spent the entire past month obsessively training autograph signatures until he ended up like this. He asks how the guy tracked him down here. Since he just registered as a hunter and hasn't joined any official missions yet, Taiyo suddenly shifts his expression and leans forward with a serious, intense glare, leaving the young hunter quite apprehensive. Next, he flashes a smug grin and deduces the guy must have fallen in love with his incredible technique during the association's evaluation tests. He lets out another loud burst of laughter and slaps the couch hard beside Tenma, who merely offers a forced smile at the whole deal. The guy confirms the story and asks to learn one of his sword techniques, prompting the master to give him a break and agree. Tenma recalls a random bar encounter in his past life, where the sword saint was completely hammered and gave him a piece of advice that night. The man slurred out that a simple technique existed that served as the absolute foundation for the entire path of swordsmanship. Drunk out of his mind, the warrior pointed his finger and asked if he really didn't know the core foundation, leaving the guy super curious at the table. The sword saint revealed with dead seriousness that the most critical foundational technique was simply called the straight cut back in the present. Taiyo stands surprised upon hearing the young man's request and asks if he truly wishes to learn just that basic move. The master calmly rises and pulls a wooden practice sword off the wall-mounted rack in the room. He holds out the wooden weapon toward the guy and plainly asks him to try gripping it for a quick test. Tenma reaches out his hand to grab the hilt of the training sword, locked on showing his drive to the veteran warrior. However, Taiyo pulls the weapon back before he even touches it and dismissively claims the guy possesses absolutely zero talent. The youth complains about not even getting a chance to hold the hilt, but the master says at his level, one look is enough to know, and tells him to give up. With a sharp, resolute glare, Tenma pushes back against the master's statement, saying nobody can know for sure without trying first. The sword saint lets out a long, heavy sigh of frustration upon sensing the young hunter's sheer stubbornness and persistence. He decides to cave and holds out the wooden sword again, placing the hilt right into the guy's hand so he can prove his point. The instant he grips the weapon, the system triggers level 10 swordsmanship and an insanely powerful blue magic aura surges around Tenma Taiyo. Kirishima stands slack-jawed in total shock at the sudden shift. Hearing the guy ask if he still thinks he lacks aptitude, the master realizes that despite looking completely average while walking and breathing, the kid's stance transformed entirely upon gripping the practice sword, breaking into a cold sweat under that insane, unexpected pressure. The veteran master swallows hard and tells the guy to follow him to the courtyard. Both walk out to an outdoor training yard on a hill, featuring 3 large wooden trunks planted firmly into the dirt floor. Holding the wooden weapon, the sword saint warns he will demonstrate a practical execution of the basic move first for the guy to see. He smiles, saying his technique is still incomplete at level 9, but that he will put on a special show to please his fan. The veteran warrior raises the wooden sword high above his head with both hands, dialing in his full attack stance. He delivers an insanely fast and powerful downward strike, cutting through the courtyard air with sheer absurd physical power. With a clean, perfect cut, the massive solid log is split clean in half diagonally before it even hits the grass hard. Taiyo Kirishima turns back smoothly toward his new student and tells him it's now his turn to try replicating the exact same strike on the log. Tenma lifts the wooden sword above his head with both hands, focusing hard to pull off the taut movement. However, his strike hits the wood flat, generating a dull thud and a shockwave that vibrates up his arms, leaving him frustrated. The master shakes his head, disappointed, seeing that the kid genuinely lacks natural aptitude to pull off the simple straight cut. Without giving up, the young hunter keeps striking the log repeatedly with everything he's got, causing a series of loud impacts. Taiyo places his hand on his head, disheartened, thinking that at this current pace, it would take the kid 10 years to master such a basic move. The kid keeps trying, obstinately. While the master thinks he would have sent anyone else packing by now if he wasn't a fan, he decides to drop a better pointer, explaining that when raising the blade, the hunter should visualize a direct connection with the heavens above. He points down and adds that when bringing the strike down, the guy must focus on tracing a flawless straight line, linking sky and earth soaked in sweat from the physical strain of repetitive training. Tenma nods his head, stating he got the veteran master's explanation. He concentrates every drop of energy, takes a deep breath, and delivers another downward strike with every bit of power in his body. The blue-haired master watches the swing without much hope, beginning to say that they should call it a day. However, Taiyo cuts his sentence short that instant as he catches a strange, unexpected sound echoing directly from the wooden log. Tenma swings another downward slash, but this time, a heavy blue energy wraps around the hilt, making the practice sword slice through the air fiercely. Taiyo Kirishima watches the scene completely wide-eyed, utterly unable to believe what is taking place right before his eyes. He notes with amazement that the guy's slash path is becoming straighter, more precise and sharper with every fresh attempt. The master starts breaking into a cold sweat and mutters to himself that watching such rapid, absurd growth in so little time should be impossible. With a sharp, precise hit, Tenma's wooden sword strikes the top of the log, carving a flawless split right down the center of the wood. Under the force of the perfect strike, the massive solid log gets split clean in half, sending both halves flying apart violently. Tenma finishes the follow-through, keeping a flawless combat stance, as both halves of the split log crash heavy onto the yard floor. The guy asks if that was the feeling he wanted to teach, and the master claps in shock, taking back what he said about him lacking gift. However, the master points at the guy and explains with a wide grin that the true straight cut demands a far higher scale of power. He reveals that to truly master the sword technique, the hunter needs to be able to slice through 4 lined-up logs all at once. Tenma walks calmly toward the fresh logs and accepts the challenge, while the master thinks that even with talent, that feat would be impossible. Tayo watches the kid approach with a hilarious, shocked expression, completely unsure of what to expect from such a bold attempt. The young man sets his feet firmly before the line of 4 massive logs, taking a deep breath to lock his focus entirely onto the attack. He raises the wooden sword high toward the sky as an insanely bright, intense blue light begins enveloping the weapon. Seeing that absurd magic energy pooling rapidly into the kid's weapon, Tayo widens his eyes, sensing something mind-blowing is about to happen. Tenma drops the ultimate downward strike at mind-boggling speed, unleashing a shockwave that cuts through the wind with power. He slices all 4 logs in a single swing, and the system alerts him. He acquired the straight cut and maxed it out instantly. The energy blast generated by the strike is so destructive, it rips a deep trench into the courtyard dirt, sending dust and rocks everywhere. The absurd impact of the technique makes the sword saint lose his balance and fall flat on his butt, utterly terrified by the swing. He asks himself in shock how that is even possible, while the young hunter lets out a subtle smirk, feeling thoroughly satisfied later on. Late that afternoon, the city's apartment buildings are bathed in a beautiful, warm orange sunset on the horizon. Utilizing her spatial teleportation skill, Yuna pops back in a blue flash right inside her home, carrying 2 bags full of groceries. She calls out happily that she's home, but gets greeted by her older sister who scolds her for using transport magic unnecessarily. The older sister, Yuki Shiragane, an SSS rank hunter, warns her about the danger of wasting mana in case she needs power in an emergency. Yuna tries to brush it off with a laugh, but Yuki quickly picks up on her younger sister's nervousness and asks why her face is suddenly so red. Adjusting her glasses embarrassed, Yuna tries to play it cool while the older sister presses on, saying she's acting super weird. The young woman replies that nothing major happened out on the street and decides to set her glasses on the kitchen counter to switch topics. Trying to sound casual, she turns her back and timidly asks if her sister happens to know a hunter named Tenma Tsukishiro. She waits anxious for the older sister's answer, her cheeks still burning red with embarrassment, hoping she knows who he is. Yuki thinks for a few brief seconds with a hand on her chin and calmly replies. She has never heard that name in her entire life. Yuna merely offers a weak smile, pretending not to care, but Yuki gets super suspicious and asks if her little sister ate something bad outside. Later in her room, Yuna appears lying on her bed, staring at her phone screen with a thoughtful, curious expression. She begins wondering if the guy mentioned her famous sister on purpose, just as a dumb excuse to get her number. She flashes a faint smile looking at his contact in her address book and admits to herself that despite being weird, the guy is actually pretty cute. Suddenly, Yuki opens the bedroom door and curiously asks if she met a guy, scaring Yuna into letting out a sharp squeal of terror. The younger sister hides her blushing face under the covers in a quick leap, while the older sister laughs, saying she's way too easy to read. Yuki pulls the blanket back with a playful grin and asks directly who this mysterious guy is that managed to stir her heart so much. Hugging her pillow tight, Yuna timidly confesses it's the guy who helped her out back in the other portal, firing up Yuki's curiosity even more. She tries to downplay the situation, saying it's no big deal and that he just asked for her work contact at the end of their meeting. Yuki pats her younger sister's head and tells her to introduce him if things work out between them, making the young girl meekly accept. Yuki explains she's heading out tomorrow on a large-scale portal mission lasting a few days, noting that portals have been acting strange lately. She asks her younger sister not to get mixed up in dangerous association missions during this period, and Yuna laughs, complaining she's way too protective. Yuki says a sweet goodbye, shuts the bedroom door, and exits, leaving her younger sister alone again with her thoughts. Alone on the bed, Yuna sits up with her pillow in her lap and returns to staring fixedly at the glowing screen of her cell phone. Her phone screen displays Tenma Tsukishiro's contact saved in her address book, making the hunter's heart flutter faster. Back at the training courtyard, Tenma silently contemplates the open trench and split logs on the dirt floor following the devastating blow. The system congratulates the guy on learning the active skill single flash cut and notifies him it hit max level instantly. The hunter celebrates out of breath for managing to master the sword technique rapidly, thanks to his passive's 100,000 times multiplier. Tenma turns around smiling and thanks the master for the valuable help, but gets caught off guard seeing the sword saint bowing his head in plea. Utterly humbled and unable to believe what he saw, the sword saint drops to his knees on the ground, begging Tenma to teach him how to do that. Desperate for answers, the master tightly grips the hunter's leg and begs, crying for him to show that sword movement one more time. He cries, saying he didn't grasp the execution, and asks how the guy reached level 10 in just a few tries, something even he couldn't pull off. Tenma stands thoroughly shocked, wondering if he genuinely surpassed the original technique of the style's very creator. The holographic display reveals Kirishima-style single flash cut at level 10, granting a special effect that allows slicing through even intangible objects. He remembers there is still 1 day left before the growth demon appears, and decides to leverage this time to learn more sword techniques. Facing the persistent pleas of the blue-haired master, the young man finally gives in and agrees to demonstrate the attack once more. In return, the hunter makes a counteroffer, asking the veteran swordsman to also show off some of his other best combat moves. With a friendly smile, Tenma holds out his hand to the kneeling warrior and formally introduces himself as Tenma Tsukishiro. The master stares up at him, teary-eyed and full of admiration, deeply moved by the generous attitude of this young hunter. Overcome with emotion, he leaps off the ground and hugs the guy with extreme force, yelling happily that he now considers him his master. The swordsman keeps hugging the guy tight, repeating enthusiastically that, starting today, Tenma is officially his new master. He promises to teach all his abilities, while Tenma pulls a face of discomfort and begs the man to let go of him already. The master jumps back and launches himself at high speed toward the clear sky, prepping a showcase of his true offensive power. With a fierce glare, he activates one of his most powerful secret techniques called the 121st form of Asura's explosive. The downward strike triggers a massive, devastating fire explosion that illuminates the entire yard with stunning destructive power. Taiyo makes a heroic landing in the middle of the heavy explosion, smoke, and sheathes his sword smoothly back into its leather scabbard with absolute style. The blue-haired man turns around and casually asks if the guy managed to grasp the core breakdown of that advanced technique. Totally exhausted and dripping sweat, Tenma mentally admits the guy's combat pace is so fast he could barely track it with his eyes. He collapses to his knees, realizing that apart from the first move, the master's other techniques are way too complex for him to copy or grasp. He laments that even possessing his divine experience multiplier skill, it doesn't alter the fact that he lacks any natural talent. The system triggers the effects of his natural recovery technique, and a gentle green light begins healing the fatigue in the guy's body. The master suggests wrapping up today's training, and the young man is surprised by the quick end, but Taiyo explains he has another important meeting. Tenma smiles and says he looks forward to seeing his single flash cut fully perfected during their next training session. The master confesses he never wanted to be a real hunter, but completely flipped his mindset after witnessing the guy's mind-blowing power. The warrior burns with an aura of resolve and announces he will become a real professional hunter, earning the young man's backing. Later, the scene shifts to the outside of a white commercial building beneath a sky painted by that same afternoon's sunset. Inside, a merchant inspects the wolf pelts and fangs brought in by the guy, thoroughly surprised by their flawless, preserved state. The bearded man asks if the guy learned butchery techniques, and Tenma replies smiling that his very survival hinges on it. The veteran blacksmith explains that top-tier materials guarantee outstanding bonus effects when crafting fresh, useful gear. He walks the young man to the exit, promising to pay top dollar if the kid can bring in more high-quality monster drops. Tenma checks the stats panel of the basic low-level leather armor he received, ironically thinking the blacksmith actually paid him terribly. Walking down the sidewalk, he acknowledges that even being basic starter gear, having some form of defense makes a massive difference. He pulls his phone from his pocket and decides it's the perfect time to clear the last major loose end remaining before his big hunt. In another corner of the city, a phone resting on a table starts ringing non-stop, displaying an incoming direct call from Tenma Tsukishiro. A female hand shoots out and picks up the call instantly, showing obvious haste and a fair bit of nervous energy. Yuna, who was chilling on the couch wearing a beauty face mask, answers startled as the guy's voice calls out from the other end. Tenma asks if she has a moment to talk since he needs to tell her something, making the girl's heart beat faster with anxiety. She tries to mask her nerves by saying she's a bit busy, playfully thinking if she should keep him waiting a little to play hard to get. However, the guy totally kills the mood by bluntly warning that the reason for the call is the outbreak of an irregular portal. Hearing those heavy words, the girl stands completely speechless, and her clay face mask cracks and drops off her face that very instant. She leaps off the couch and yells super alarmed into the phone, demanding to know what he just said about an irregular portal in the city. The guy's system screen breaks down his fresh F-rank limit break quest, whose objective is to beat a demon to gain power. Later that night, Tenma rests his magic sword over his shoulders, standing before his bedroom window, declaring himself ready for battle. The young man smiles confidently under the moonlight, eager to launch his big secret demon extermination mission. The next day, Tenma meets Yuna near a lake and apologizes for being late, while other hunters wait near a purple portal. Dressed in a formal suit, the girl asks if the info on the danger is solid, and the armored guy assures her she'll see for herself inside. She lets out a tense sigh, commenting on the D-rank irregular portal, noting they will shadow members of the Roman guild who requested backup. Yuna stops walking, looks back timidly, and says she needs to tell him one more thing, leaving the hunter curious over the pause. She loses the nerve to say what she wanted, lets out an annoyed sigh, and simply tells him to move it so they don't lag behind for combat. The guy stands confused by her reaction and jogs to catch up as the other Roman guild hunters watch them from afar on the grass. The D-rank Roman guild hunters, Taiga Saejima and Mai Yumasaki, wait eager for the right moment to step into the portal. Yuna Shiragane formally introduces herself as an association rep, while Mai greets her back, and Tenma hurries to catch up with them. Mai asks who the guy beside her is, and Yuna explains he will act as support in case any unusual situation unfolds inside the portal. Taiga Saejima, the guild master, introduces himself harshly and tells them to act fast and bounce as soon as they finish up the job. He coldly warns that every monster in the area belongs to his guild and tells the guy to stay completely out of their hunt. Yuna politely agrees, while Tenma notices the Roman guild leader didn't even acknowledge his existence as a real hunter. The hunter observes the group, remembering that in the original timeline, every single member of that Roman guild was killed by the portal demon. Catching the guy's fixed stare, Taiga turns around aggressively and asks if he has something he wants to say about the situation. Sensing the tension in the air, Tenma chooses not to cause trouble right now and simply replies quickly that he has nothing to say. The Roman guild leader harshly orders the guy to shut it and keep following the group, leading the entry into the purple portal. Yuna whispers to Tenma that this is exact reason she can't stand guilds, since they always view the Hunter Association as a direct rival. The Roman guild party steps into the purple portal's swirling energy, closely followed by the hunter and the young female rep. Before crossing the portal, Yuna asks Tenma to hold up a second so she can take a precise energy reading of the area. She extends her arm toward the portal's magic energy and begins checking the power flow to verify if any major anomaly exists. The girl analyzes the magic flow data with super-focused eyes, trying to ensure everyone's entry is as safe as possible. She concludes the energy flow appears standard, but asks if the guy is certain there is something wrong with this specific dungeon. Flashing a super confident smile with arms crossed, Tenma simply replies that she will discover the truth real soon. Yuna finds him a super interesting person and chooses to trust his words, even at the risk of being tricked by him. The second they step inside, they encounter a stunning night landscape where a full moon shines bright over a beautiful lake in a blue forest. Enchanted by the mystical scenery, Yuna comments on how pretty the place is, while Tenma keeps close beside her, maintaining focus on the surroundings. The hunter firmly grips the hilt of his fresh sword, knowing full well that the dungeon boss must be hiding somewhere out there. With a super serious, locked-in gaze, he visualizes that the terrible growth demon is lurking somewhere in the forest. Out of nowhere, a terrifying, echoing howl begins spreading across the entire dark forest, shattering the silence of that magical night. Hearing the sound, Taiga turns back and sharply warns the guy and girl not to wander too far from the main group. He dismissively adds that it would be a total headache if something bad happened to them under his guild's watch. Yuna responds with a forced smile, but angrily thinks that D-rank Hunter has a massive superiority complex, bossing her around clueless to the real threat. The Roman guild hunters keep laughing and chatting casually as they walk down the path. Tenma watches them in silence, thinking that hunters who level up fast foolishly believe they will automatically become the strongest in the world. He reflects on the naive power scaling of hunters who think climbing the first few level steps guarantees top-tier success. The guy concludes they think they'll reach the top effortlessly, but knows only genuine anomalies actually make it to S rank. One of the scouts shouts out, warning of the rapid approach of wild monsters, putting the young hunter on high alert in the woods. Suddenly, a pack of silver wolves pops up charging at high speed toward the hunter group. Growling ferociously, Taiga draws his twin combat swords and alerts the others that 3 silver wolves are sprinting straight at them. The frontline warriors raise their heavy swords and prep to hold off the monster's push with a solid wall block. Mai raises her golden magic staff and casts a light protection shield to safeguard all allies from the monster's attack. A massive golden energy dome forms around the hunter party, successfully blocking the initial impact of the fast wolves. The squad mage readies her spells and announces that her ice magic missile summon is fully prepped to fire. As the monsters claw at the energy barrier, Taiga holds firm in the lead, coordinating the group's defensive counterstrike. On the command to fire, the mage releases a devastating volley of ice magic arrows against the beasts attempting to break the barrier. The magic projectiles strike the silver wolves head-on, triggering several blue energy bursts that severely wound the forest beasts. Hit hard by the powerful magic, the wolves fall heavily onto the ground, whimpering in pain and weakening after the devastating impact. Taiga seizes the chance to push forward with his warriors and land the final sword blows against the fallen monsters. The guild party finishes off the silver wolves with violent slashes, while the beasts scream in pain and collapse lifeless onto the forest floor. Tenma observes the scene from afar, acknowledging the Roman guild would have zero trouble clearing the area if this were just an ordinary portal. He adds that the only real problem in this situation is that the terrible growth demon is about to make its move. Out of nowhere, 2 gigantic wolves shrouded in a dark mist emerge from the shadows, making Taiga realize the imminent danger in the area. One of the giant beasts charges furiously at the Roman guild leader, showing sharp teeth and a terrifying dark aura around it. The long-haired warrior senses the beast's overwhelming power and starts sweating nervously upon noticing the massive gap in strength. He flies into a total panic, facing the danger, yelling desperately for every member to fall back inside the magic barrier immediately. The leader stands terrified, seeing the monsters keep pushing aggressively, even after taking direct hits to their vital spots. Taiga Saejima charges frantically at the giant monster, trying to hit it with his twin swords to hold off the wild push. The group's mage points her hands and fires off another barrage of bright ice arrows, screaming for the monster to take that hit. However, the magic arrows merely collide with the beast's tough skin, sparking tiny bursts without causing any actual damage. The girl stands totally shocked and screams terrified, realizing her offensive magic simply isn't working against the monster. Under the heavy physical strain of the giant wolf's attack, the golden protective shield starts cracking all over in an extremely dangerous way. The beast completely destroys the light shield and charges open-mouthed toward Taiga, throwing every hunter into total panic. The Roman guild leader is forced to take a swift leap backward to barely dodge the sharp claws of the terrible giant wolf. Meanwhile, another monstrous beast leaps violently onto the frontline warriors, desperately trying to hold the defense line. Mayu Misaki takes a direct hit from the monster's physical force and gets slammed backward, letting out a sharp scream of terror and pain. Taiga yells desperately for his group members to control their panic, hold the line no matter what, and keep fighting with everything. Watching everything from afar, Tenma explains to Yuna that a portal boss's demon energy evolves and massively buffs all other monsters. The hunter adds that this absurd power spike in regular monsters is the main reason why demons are such feared entities. Even amidst the chaos and covered in fire, the Roman guild hunters keep swinging at the beasts in pure desperation. Seeing the group's rough spot, Yuna notes the monsters seem way too strong for D-rank and asks if they shouldn't jump in to help. Tenma triggers his level 10 perception skill and calmly replies that right now, they aren't in a position to worry about others. A massive wave of blue and white energy from his perception spreads around him and Yuna, mapping out the entire surrounding area of the dark forest. Through his mapping skill, the hunter detects that more giant beasts are sprinting at high speed straight toward them. Out of nowhere, 3 new giant wolves shrouded in black mist erupt from the forest shadows, growling terrifyingly. One of the monsters leaps with sharp claws aimed at Tenma, who holds a firm stance and readies for combat using his new sword. He draws his special sword, Soul Eater, which starts glowing intensely with a powerful, blinding, bluish magic energy. With a single, clean, fast diagonal slash, the guy slices the giant wolf in half, and the system alerts him that EXP gain is locked. He feels thoroughly satisfied with Soul Eater's destructive output, praising the sharp cut that exceeded his combat expectations. That instant, the other 2 monstrous beasts leap together at the guy with sharp teeth and furious growls. Showing zero fear, Tenma lunges forward with his glowing sword and yells with resolve that it's time to attack. Suddenly, a massive bundle of orange energy magic chains flies through the air, cutting across the dark dungeon sky. The glowing chains tightly wrap around the monsters' bodies, completely locking down the wild wolves' attack movements. The hunter glances back surprised and sees the giant beast completely immobilized and pinned to the ground by orange magic. Yuna Shiragane appears controlling the binding magic and yells urgently for the guy to seize the moment and finish off the beasts right now. Tenma agrees, acknowledging with awe that Yuki Shiragane's younger sister genuinely boasts incredible combat and support skills. The young man spins swiftly and unleashes a barrage of blazingly fast, precise bluish energy slashes through the air. With a cross-shaped strike utilizing his straight cut, the guy wipes out the beasts pinned down by the energy chains once and for all. The giant wolves' bodies are sliced to pieces and crash bloody onto the dirt floor. While the young hunter sheathes his weapon, Yuna watches the scene in absolute shock, muttering to herself that this regular guy's offensive power is simply mind-blowing. A dark smoke of magic energy begins rising from the slain monsters' bodies, flowing straight into the guy's magic sword. The hunter's system holographic panel alerts him that the Soul Eater sword has begun consuming the slain monsters' essences. The notification reveals the Soul Eater's current soul collection pool has hit the 13% capacity mark. Yuna shifts her focus off the sword and comments that the Roman Guild members still seem to be having serious trouble in their fight. Indeed, the Roman Guild hunter party keeps getting backed into a corner, taking heavy hits from the beasts wrapped in black mist. Desperate and heavily battered, Taiga Saejima turns toward the guy and screams, demanding he run over to help them in battle. Tenma simply stares at him cold with arms crossed and asks if he hadn't ordered the guy to stay completely clear of their prey. The Roman Guild leader flies into a rage at the sarcastic retort, demanding how the guy can say something like that at such a critical time. Right after, Taiga takes a direct heavy hit from the wolf and gets thrown far back, coughing up blood from the heavy impact. Seeing the D-rank guild's imminent downfall, Yuna turns to the guy and anxiously asks if they really aren't going to help them out. Sometime later, the hunter party appears exhausted, sitting on the ground, while Taiga tries to convince them to rest before pushing on. One of the armored warriors gets pissed off at the leader's attitude and asks if he really plans to keep hunting in that state. Mai Yumasaki also shakes her head, no, firmly stating there's no way they physically can advance any deeper into the dungeon. The leader snaps back annoyed, questioning their fear, claiming it's just a regular D-rank portal and that they shouldn't back out now. He frantically explains that if they fail this raid, they won't have cash to buy fresh gear or pay off the guild's piled-up debts. Tenma recalls how treating monster hunting like a casual game usually blinds hunters to the real danger of those otherworldly creatures. Yuna cuts into the argument, stating with authority that it's way too dangerous to push on. Since the irregular portal monsters got heavily buffed, Yuna suggests falling back to call for backup, but Taiga gets defensive, arrogantly asking if she has any actual proof of the anomaly. The Roman Guild leader coldly claims they are the ones running the raid and tells the young woman not to step out of line with him. He continues the lecture demanding obedience, while Mai Yumasaki watches her master's attitude with a super worried look. Suddenly, Mai starts shaking in terror and stammers out Sejima's name, pointing her finger toward the dark forest. She begs the leader to look in that direction, and Taiga turns around confused, sensing a crushing presence closing in on them. In the middle of the dark trees, two massive, glowing red eyes pop up floating in the air, radiating an insane bloodlust. A monstrous wolf paw wrapped in black flames slams into the ground at full power, shattering rocks and spreading smoke across the clearing. The colossal silver wolf boss pops up imposing right in front of the hunter group, releasing a terrifying red demon aura. The terrifying dungeon boss throws its head back toward the sky and lets out an insanely loud, deafening roar that shakes the whole forest. The roar's heavy shockwave is so destructive it blows almost every hunter backward, making them scream in pain and panic in midair. Dropped onto the stone floor, Taiga tries to catch his breath while staring at the giant beast wide-eyed. Completely terrified, Tenma Tsukishiro is the only one who manages to hold his ground firmly, placing a hand on his new weapon's hilt and facing the threat. Under heavy earth and air tremors, the hunter instantly grasps that this massive beast is the true boss of that portal. The young man keeps his combat stance flawless before the massive demon, ready to kick off the mission's decisive showdown. The silver wolf boss unleashes another ear-splitting roar, and the system alerts the guy that the beast is releasing its terrifying battle cry. The system warns the roar inflicted a mental panic debuff, lowering mobility and triggering a nasty headache across the whole party. Feeling his brain nearly split with pain, Taiga begs desperately for Yuna to cast her escape magic, but Tenma asks her to hold out hurting under the heavy mental pressure of the roar. The girl yells for everyone to group up fast since she can't maintain the portal for long. While holding his head, Tenma gets notifications that he acquired and rapidly leveled up the mindset skill to level 3. The system alerts him that his resistance against mental debuffs shot up significantly, allowing him to regain focus amidst the chaos. With the sudden spike in mental strength, the hunter completely clears the panic effect and readies to move in the clearing. Taiga crawls with extreme effort across the ground, and out-of-breath alerts that the party needs to run from that monster. ASAP Mai Yumasaki, lying on the ground right behind him, reaches out with difficulty and begs desperately for help from her guild leader. In an act of extreme cowardice and pure selfishness, Taiga brutally kicks his guildmate's hand away to make his own escape solo. The cowardly leader sprints off, leaving his allies behind, while Tenma watches him with a face of total disgust and loathing. He realizes if the coward runs off now, Yuna's teleportation magic will get cancelled, leaving zero option but to pin the runner down. Tenma locks his red glare onto the Roman guild leader and instantly triggers the effects of his active intimidation skill. A massive, crushing presence erupts around the guy, and the alert notes that nearby targets fell under his panic effect. Under Tenma's heavy psychic pressure, Taiga loses all strength in his legs and crashes face first onto the dirt floor in pathetic fashion. Yuna casts the magic circle on the floor and yells, ordering everyone into the barrier so she can cast their escape teleportation. The surviving hunters drag themselves inside the glowing circle while the massive beast sprints straight at them, out for blood. One of the group mages gets left behind, frozen in fear, but Tenma sprints over fast, scooping him into his arms before the strike hits. The beast slams into the empty clearing with sharp teeth, the exact instant Yuna's portal glows bright and completes the warp. The giant wolf's bite hits nothing but packed dirt on the forest floor, kicking up dust right where the hunter group stood. The party pops back up, dropped onto the ground of a distant hill far out of the beast's range. Hearing furious howls echoing from the forest, Mai catches her breath gradually beside Taiga and whispers relieved that they finally managed to save themselves from that awful danger. One of the hunters says they need to bounce out of the portal fast, but Yuna notes something went wrong with her magic's teleport route. She looks back super alarmed and reveals to the frantic hunters that the dungeon exit portal is locked shut. Tenma walks over and seriously explains that, being an irregular portal, the exit will only open once they defeat the dungeon boss. Panicked, Taiga Saejima drops to his knees on the ground and yells outraged, asking how on earth they could beat a powerhouse beast like that. Without saying a word, the guy draws his glowing Soul Eater sword right in front of the cowardly leader's face, pulling a nimble airstrike. The guildmaster curls up on the ground, covering his head in fear, assuming he was about to get attacked by the F-rank hunter himself. However, Tenma's fast slash cleanly cuts down a wolf trying to attack them from behind, splitting the monster in half in an instant. Sheathing the sword with flair, Tenma reassures the terrified hunters, confidently guaranteeing that he will defeat the boss himself. He strides off solo toward the dark forest, while Taiga watches from the ground, totally stunned by the guy's sheer guts. Suddenly, the Roman guild mage points a shaking finger forward and asks terrified what that awful black smoke could be. Out of the slain wolf's body, a eerie, terrifying mass of dark shadow begins sprouting, violently wrapping around the entire creature. The dark smoke tentacles completely cover the monstrous beast, which roars in agony as the dark power swallows it whole. Within moments, the beast's silhouette is totally dissolved in the air by the thick smoke, leaving only a dark vortex hovering. Tenma observes the black sphere hovering over the brush, curiously wondering if that evil entity took over the dungeon boss's body. Tenma realizes this is finally the target he needs to defeat to beat this challenge. It is the terrifying growth demon. Emerging before him, wrapped in a sinister dark smoke, Yuna Shiragane stands in total disbelief and asks if he is seriously planning to fight that creature. He replies that he and Yuna are going to take down the monster alone, catching the other hunters completely off guard. The companions think taking on the beast with just 2 people is a total suicide mission. Instead of backing off, Tenma simply calls out to Saejima. Getting the panicked leader's attention, he asks Saejima to lend him his metal armor, which carries a rare rating and solid defense against beasts. Yuna asks what kind of creature that is, and Tenma explains it devoured the dungeon boss to take its form. When she asks if he has any actual plan, he calmly states he intends to just beat it using raw brute force. She mockingly remarks that it sounds like a brilliant plan to get them both killed real quick. The guy notes that the boss's power boost sealed the portal, but their objective remains the exact same all at once. Several wolves pop up sprinting and roaring furiously in their direction. Tenma dashes forward with agility and strikes the monsters mid-air, set on crushing every single enemy that steps up. 3 fast wolves charge straight at Yuna, who readies to deal with the threat. She casts a powerful lightning spell that strikes the wolves with a heavy electric blast. The lightning attack triggers a massive explosion across the battlefield, vaporizing the monsters in an instant. Tenma praises her attack, and Yuna brags that she will soon be promoted to a B-rank hunter. He regrets missing out on the experience from those kills, but thanks her for clearing out the area so fast. Soul Eater consumes a soul, and the system's energy gauge hits the 100% mark. A notification alerts him that Soul Eater's special feature has finally unlocked. The soul release skill activates, cloaking the blade in countless spirits to amplify its power output. He stands amazed by the massive strength jump, but notes the effect only lasts for 5 seconds. Yuna points forward and warns that an extremely dangerous aura is starting to surge just ahead. The giant wolf pops up atop a stone hill, howling loudly under the full moonlight with dark energy radiating off it. The creature's roar blasts through the area, hitting the other wolves, who freeze up in fear. Yuna catches that the silver wolves are acting weird, and Tenma explains they are spooked by the boss's altered howl. The hunter decides he needs to move fast before the demon fully absorbs all of the wolf boss's power. Yuna suspects he knows something and asks him to spit it out, noting that Beast looks like a walking natural disaster. He reveals that a growth demon possessed the wolf's body, breaking down that demons are monsters loaded with massive evil energy. Suddenly, system warnings pop up, alerting that they crossed into a demon servant's domain and that area debuffs have been slapped on. The system alerts that any living creature within a 50-meter radius is now blocked from growing or evolving. Curious about the restriction prompt, she asks what it means, and Tenma offers to break it down real quick. He checks the glowing screen floating in front of him, thinking to himself that the rules match his memory spot on. This restriction is a staple trait of the demon race, who manipulate dark energy and rule over evil. Every single one of these monsters commands its own domain and exerts a heavy negative aura over anyone stepping into its turf. The growth lock prevents hunters from scaling up in strength or awakening new skills near the demon. He knows right now the restriction only covers 50 meters, but worries about what happens if the situation keeps dragging out like this. Yuna starts catching the gravity of the situation and notes worriedly that things are getting seriously bad for them. The massive beast locks its eyes in their direction, and the hunter realizes the monster finally figured out where they were hiding. Without wasting a second, the terrifying wolf leaps off the cliff with sharp teeth and charges fiercely at the duo. The monster slams violently into the ground, shattering the stone floor and kicking up a massive dust cloud. Tenma and Yuna draw on quick reflexes to dodge the creature's crushing impact at the absolute last second. In the center of the destruction, a mysterious female figure with white hair and long elf ears pops up floating in midair. Yuna stands surprised by that new form, deducing that elf must have been another creature absorbed by the monster back in the day. The elf entity starts hovering higher, pooling a massive purple magic energy sphere right in the palm of her hand. She manifests several of those giant purple spheres around herself, setting up a barrier of raw, destructive power in midair. Both Yuna and Tenma stand completely shocked, witnessing the massive magic power gathered right in front of them. Tenma notes the records on the growth demon didn't mention any high-level skill like that. He deduces the monster jacked the spell from the consumed elf and warns that their best play right now is to dodge the incoming attack. The guy gives a firm order for her to prep to dodge the instant he calls out the command signal. He immediately triggers his level 10 perception skill to track the opponent's moves with absolute accuracy. The creature hovers, pooling massive magic power in her hands, prepping to launch those destructive spheres straight at them. With a ruthless dark glare, the magic entity begins guiding the dangerous projectiles right toward her target. She pulls a swift finger movement, launching the nasty purple attack at incredible speed. The exact moment it fires, Tenma yells out to Yuna, ordering her to make the dodge right now. The massive magic spheres blast powerful purple energy beams that spread destructively across the battlefield. Yuna sprints as fast as she can to slip out of the path of those awful blasts, tearing up everything they touch. Meanwhile, Tenma slides across the stone floor with agility, passing right between 2 giant energy beams. He triggers his level 10 agility passive to crank up his reaction and movement speed even higher. The hunter also activates his max-level footwork technique to pull off even faster, razor-sharp maneuvers. He uses his level 10 martial arts skill to flip aerobatically through the air, dodging the explosions by millimeters. He manages to touch down on the ground safely, clearing the insane sequence of dodges without catching a single scratch. Out of breath, he realizes with concern that he had to stack 4 skills simultaneously just to survive that single barrage. The guy catches that Saejima's armor took damage, admitting he'd be dead meat right now if he wasn't wearing that gear. With a locked glare, he concludes his only shot is hitting the demon before it can prep the next magic volley. The elf creature lets out a bored yawn while hovering casually, demonstrating that massive power is nothing to her. Seizing the opening, the hunter dashes straight at the enemy with sword drawn to land a direct hit. However, the entity catches his approach and manifests a fresh purple magic barrier right before her body in a flash. Seeing the enemy defense, Tenma yells out for Yuna to execute her part of the play immediately. Several purple energy chains sprout violently out of the ground. Blasting toward the hovering elf creature, Yuna's magic chains firmly wrap around the opponent's arms and legs, locking her in midair and shutting down her movement. Straining to hold the chains tight, Yuna yells out that now is the exact moment for him to land the final blow. Tenma leaps toward the pinned enemy with all his power, focusing his glowing sword's energy for the slash. He drops into the classic battle stance and readies the famous Kirishima-style sword technique to hit the monster. The hunter pulls off the straight cut, blasting a trail of bright, sharp blue energy straight into the target. The fast strike slices the elf figure right down the middle amidst a heavy burst of bright blue energy. He lands crouched on the ground, quietly celebrating landing a clean, direct hit on the magic creature. However, he catches a sinister growl right behind him and quickly turns around with swords up, staying on guard. The massive giant wolf pops up standing right in front of him, wrapped in an alarming black smoke of concentrated demon energy. Tenma breathes heavy, realizing the danger is far from over as he faces the colossal beast. He notes the demon quickly shifted back to wolf form to minimize the damage taken from his cut. The creature also draws on its massive physical power to snap Yuna's magic chains all at once, freeing itself completely. Freaking out seeing the massive beast loose, Yuna screams at the top of her lungs, warning her companion to watch out. The wolf opens its giant mouth wide and starts pooling a massive purple sphere of destructive energy right in front of Tenma. The beast blasts the powerful purple magic strike into the ground, setting off a massive shockwave across the whole area. The violent energy blast hits the ground with full force, while the guy tries to guard against the magic's heavy impact. He catches that the enemy is blending the wolf's raw power with the elf's magic, finding that combo ridiculously dangerous. A giant mass of dark magic energy pools in the sky right above him, threatening to wipe out the whole surrounding area at once. The purple beam crushes the ground furiously, and he lets out a groan of pain, straining to hold up under the heavy attack pressure. He grips his head tight, out of breath and worn out from the massive physical toll demanded by the fight so far, trying to help out any way she can. Yuna extends her arm and summons a glowing orange magic circle to support the warrior capitalizing on the buff. The hunter sprints forward again across the battlefield to deliver a fresh strike against the wolf. He channels every bit of energy into the blade and pulls off the straight cut once more, hitting the monster's chest dead on. The strike's impact sets off a massive thud, making the creature roar in pain as the blow's power shatters the rock below. However, the white-furred beast manages to fall back quickly, leaping backward to put distance between itself and the hunter's sword. Tenma touches down with effort on the stone rubble, letting out a tired groan while trying to catch his lost breath. A massive, menacing purple sphere of demon energy begins pooling right before his eyes, prepping the counterattack. He takes a leap backward, startled as the floor beneath him explodes violently amidst dark energy beams. Countless purple energy spikes rain down from the sky like a devastating storm, wrecking everything in their path. He realizes if the fight turns into a battle of attrition, they are going to lose, thinking frantically that he needs to find a way to win real quick. Suddenly, he remembers Yuna Shiragane and wonders worriedly how she is holding up amidst all that smoke and explosions. Yuna keeps fighting with every drop of strength left, but realizes frantic that her magic energy is hitting the absolute limit. Tenma steps onto a pool of dark, dense liquid that pooled on the stone floor following the demon's recent attacks. He closely inspects the black sludge bubbling on the ground, catching that something is off with the chunks sliced off the monster. The hunter concludes the sliced bits of the demon can't reattach to the main body, proving his attacks are actually working. He sprints once again straight toward the monster, aware that all he needs right now is a single clean opening. Tenma approaches the massive beast at high speed, locking down his mind and energy to pull off the game-ending strike. He lands a powerful low-to-high slash, and the giant wolf howls in pain, taking the massive hit impact. Enraged, the monster swings back instantly with a devastating paw strike that shatters the ground and nearly catches the hunter clean. He manages to fall back in time, thinking to himself that he still has one last insanely powerful attack saved up his sleeve. It's the Soul Eater Sword's special feature, Soul Release, which massively boosts its reach and damage output for 5 seconds. He knows he will only have 5 seconds to move, while the giant wolf preps another dangerous, concentrated energy beam from its mouth. Without wasting a split second, the hunter yells out loudly, calling Yuna Shiragene's name to launch their final setup play. Yuna catches a fright seeing the guy running straight at her and frantically asks why he's closing in so fast, skip explanations. Tenma simply scoops her onto his shoulders all at once and keeps running while the girl screams, totally confused. He sprints full speed and quickly asks if she can use her teleportation skill to place them right above the wolf's head. She answers she can, but warns she only has energy for a single cast, and Tenma assures her that's more than enough for the play. A massive dark blast slams into the exact spot they were standing the instant the glowing warp circle triggers. While casting the spell with effort, she yells annoyed, asking if he lost his mind, trying a crazy gamble play like that. The hunter maintains locked focus on the target amidst the bright flash wrapping around them both to pull off the magic transition. The wolf's violent strike hits nothing but empty dirt, while the duo completely vanishes out of the beast's reach. A small magic fissure opens up in midair, high up in the blue sky, marking the exact exit point for Yuna's magic. Both hunters pop up, dropping at high speed right out of the exit portal, positioned straight above the giant monster. Yuna screams terrified from the sudden freefall, holding on tight to her companion during the fast drop. The system alerts the activation of Soul Release, cloaking the Soul Eater sword in a massive amount of blue energy. The notification confirms the reach and power of his attack have been maxed out to drop the devastating blow. With the Soul Eater sword overflowing with power, he readies to drop the single strongest strike of the swordsmanship style. He fires off the super straight cut, releasing a giant blue light beam that cuts through the dark area with raw force. The attack evolves into the devastating colossal straight cut, dropping a solid blue light blade ruthlessly onto the enemy. The giant blue energy beam strikes the growth demon dead on, completely disintegrating the monster amidst a blinding flash. Shortly after, a gentle rain begins falling over the area, and the system display officially confirms the demon was finally defeated. The dark smoke and remains of the demon creature dissolve completely into thin air, leaving total silence back over the forest. Totally wiped out with 0 leg power, Yuna slumps flat on her back onto the damp forest floor, trying to catch her breath. She stares thoughtfully up at the sky, wondering to herself who this guy really is, to pull off such unbelievable power. She questions why he hid such insane skills for so long, living merely as a low-level F-rank hunter. A system alert congratulates Tenma on clearing the quest and leveling up, hitting D rank, something he never accomplished in his past life. Yuna walks over telling him to get up, but the guy replies with a tired groan that he won't be able to move for a bit. She puts on a serious face and warns, they're going to be in deep trouble if they don't bounce out of there and move fast. From atop the hill, dozens of silver wolves with glowing red eyes start popping up out of the dark, surrounding both hunters. The monsters growl furiously, baring sharp teeth. Ready to jump the pair who are running on empty from the previous battle, Tenma smiles and asks her to hold off the beasts for just 5 minutes, making the girl complain big time over his slacking. Next, she downs an intermediate mana recovery potion to restore a bit of her remaining energy reserves. Cloaked in a heavy golden aura, she warns he's going to have to foot the bill for the most expensive dinner on the menu as payback for all this help. Still lying on the dirt floor, the young hunter smiles relieved, thinking to himself that even a single minute would be plenty for him. Out of nowhere, a massive, destructive burst of golden fire sweeps the surrounding area, driving back the beasts trying to close in. Taiga watches the massive firewall from afar in utter shock, whispering out Yuna Shiragene's name terrified under the city sunset. Alerts confirm every wolf was cleared, and the irregular portal was successfully cleared. Mai throws her arms up super happy and yells out celebrating that they all actually made it out alive. As the other hunters walk off relieved, Yuna helps Tenma walk, reminding him about the promise of that expensive dinner he has to cover. He thanks her for the support with a friendly smile, letting her know he feels much better and can walk solo from here on out. Tenma hands back the wrecked pieces of Seijima's armor, thanking him for the crucial help during the fight. While Seijima cries in the background over losing his rare armor, Mai thanks both warriors for saving everyone's lives. Yuna warns that the Hunter Association will be reaching out soon and guides Mai to explain everything that happened properly before leaving. The mage timidly asks for the young hunter to at least drop his name. With a friendly smile, he makes up a fake name on the spot, introducing himself as Busen Goriki. Mai bows in thanks, while Yuna watches the whole thing suspicious, finding that sudden last name super weird. She whispers asking if he's some runaway and why he hides his ID, but Tenma simply replies it isn't really his choice. The hunter reflects that securing backing from a major guild would be ideal for fast growth, but his real problem is that he scales up way too fast. He knows if the demons embedded in society discover his potential and put him on a hit list, it will be game over for his run. He concludes he needs to stay completely under the radar and avoid drawing unnecessary heat until he packs enough power to defend himself solo. Grasping the situation, Yuna asks if he wants her to keep quiet and fake the raid report for the association too. She admits they dodged a massive disaster thanks to him, but wonders if it's really right to lie on official paperwork. With a laid-back smile, Tenma replies honest that her help covering his tracks would be of massive use to him. Catching the guy's gratitude, the young hunter gets slightly embarrassed with blushing cheeks, not really knowing what to say. She says goodbye, demanding he call later, and firmly reminds him not to dare forget the promise to pay for that pricey dinner. Out of nowhere, the young hunter calls her back, making the girl stop walking and turn around surprised by the sudden call-out. Still super flustered, she runs a hand through her hair and asks curious what he wants to talk about so seriously. He smiles and explains his clothes are trashed, asking if she could use spatial teleportation to drop him off directly in Ryozan. Realizing he just wanted a free magic ride, she instantly drops her smile and glares at him annoyed. In the blink of an eye, she activates her transport power and vanishes in a flash of blue light, leaving the guy thoroughly surprised behind. The next day, the scene shifts to a quiet residential apartment complex beneath a bright, sunny morning sky. Tenma wakes up feeling great in his bed, and the system alerts him that max-level natural recovery has activated on his body. Noticing how refreshed he feels with zero pain, he smiles, thinking to himself that this skill is a total cheat code. The virtual display shows that a single night's sleep secured 35% XP progress for his passive skill. He celebrates hitting D rank, happy that his talentless adjustment now lets his skills cross level 10 thanks to the broken cap. Suddenly, the guy's cell phone starts vibrating hard on his bedsheets, grabbing his immediate attention. Picking up the device, he sees 4 missed calls from Hiroki Gondo, his former temp agency manager. He looks at the calls with a light smile, deciding he won't take on any more temp gigs or odd jobs from here on out. The hunter accesses his virtual inventory interface to check out the various items and swords he picked up during his raids. He pulls out a shiny, valuable mid-grade high-purity mana crystal that glows intensely in golden and red tones. He checks out the gem, estimating that having super high purity, it should fetch solid cash if sold on the hunter market. A new screen pops up alerting the completion of the Limit Break quest, revealing the unlock of the Causality Reversal shop. Intrigued by the new feature opening up before him, the guy comments to himself that this doesn't look like a standard system shop. The new virtual shop display shows he holds 500 accumulated points, while also showing several locked tabs with padlocks. He catches that right now only the consumable items section is open, wondering if weapons and accessories will get added down the line. Opening the consumable tab, he finds a treasure acquisition potion priced at his exact 500 available points. Trusting his luck, he reflects that the hunter system never handed him anything that would put him in a bad spot. Facing this, the guy chooses not to hesitate and taps the virtual button to blow all his points and acquire the mysterious potion. He gets a glowing blue potion bottle carrying the effect to flip causality and point out a direct path to some treasure for 1 hour. Aware that cash is critical for his hunter run, he concludes he has 0 to lose by drinking the brew. Without hesitating another second, the guy brings the glowing blue bottle to his lips and downs the whole liquid in one shot. He wipes his mouth after finishing the mysterious potion, noting surprise that apparently nothing around him changed in the room. However, right after, a mysterious blue flame bearing the local currency symbol pops up floating in the air right above his head. The tiny floating fire of blue energy starts moving slowly across the room space, acting like it's pointing out a direction to follow. Tenma inspects the bluish energy with curiosity as it stops and hovers right over his phone resting on the bed. The tiny spirit fire of energy drops down slowly and touches the lit phone screen, embedding its magic straight into the guy's device. The hunter catches that the flame is pointing directly at Hiroki's missed calls, concluding the system wants him to hit him back. He decides to follow the system cue and dials the number, getting picked up almost instantly by the furious agency manager. Hiroki yells, enraged from the other end of the line, demanding to know why he took so long to return the call and ordering him to get to the office. Hearing his old manager's loud complaints, the guy merely flashes a sly smirk, grasping what fate held in store for him. Hearing the kid's bold response, the former agency boss pauses and angrily asks what he just said. Completely cool and confident, Tenma simply orders him to stay right where he is and hangs up the phone. He arrives at the agency's commercial building, guided closely by the tiny blue magic flame floating silently beside him. He steps into the dark, quiet hallway, watching the blue energy head straight for the door of the manager's office. The magic flame stops right before the keyhole, indicating through the potion's active system that something super valuable is hidden inside that room. He slowly opens the door and enters Hiroki's office, wonderingly curious about what kind of treasure could be stashed in a plain place like this. The instant he walks in, a glass cup is hurled straight at him by Hiroki, who screams enraged, calling him a useless, good-for-nothing placeholder. The manager yells furious, asking how he dared ignore his calls, blaming him for blowing a major deal and threatening him with violence. Hiroki orders his two goons to give the guy a corrective beatdown, just like they used to back in the old days when he was weak. Tenma reflects that Hiroki is just a regular human, and that the sole reason he could boss him around in the past was because of those two. The hunter activates his level 10 memory search technique, remembering the countless times he was cowardly beaten by that duo. They are D-rank hunters, Masato Kido and Taiji Kumagawa, who intimidated weaker folks using pure physical strength and violence. One of them mockingly grabs the MC's face, asking what he's staring at and if he happened to eat something weird. Seeing the kid's silent attitude, Hiroki orders his goons from afar to start beating him up already so he learns his lesson. The goon yanks him hard by his jacket collar, sneering that he doesn't seem to grasp the dangerous spot he's standing in. The kid knows that even being D-rank, their skills don't cross level 5, while he is now sitting on a completely different power tier. Tenma activates his level 10 strength passive, grabbing the attacker's wrist and crushing his hand with an insanely powerful steel grip. With total ease, the MC hurls the goon's massive body, sending him flying violently to the far side of the commercial office. The attacker crashes back first into a bookshelf, knocking everything over, leaving the other goon and Hiroki in total shock at the sight. Enraged seeing his partner taken down so easily, the second goon steps up, swinging a violent full-power punch straight at his face. With his level 10 perception active, the young man dodges the strike's path smoothly, without showing an ounce of effort. Next, he triggers max-level martial arts and drops a heavy uppercut straight onto the opponent's chin with extreme precision. The devastating strike drops the attacker flat on his back, completely knocked out cold, finished in a single swift move. Desperate over his men falling, Hiroki slams his desk and yells on a shaky voice, ordering them to get up and do the job right. However, the first goon pushes himself up furious and starts flexing his muscles violently. Tearing his shirt sleeves in the process, he activates level 5 full body strength amplification, dropping into an aggressive stance with eyes glowing red. The buffed hunter sprints full speed at the guy, tearing up the floor and pushing furiously to crush him once and for all. Showing zero hesitation, Tenma simply lands a devastating straight punch right in the middle of the charging opponent's face. The blow's impact blasts the buffed goon backward with force, sending him crashing straight into Hiroki and knocking him off his chair. The crash destroys Hiroki's office desk and makes the old boss let out a groan of pain as he gets crushed under his own goon's weight. Lying on the floor amidst the wreckage, the manager tries to threaten him angrily, saying he will use his pull to ruin his hunter career. The young man slowly steps up and glares down at him with an icy stare, making the man lose all composure and let out a sharp squeal of terror. Hiroki keeps screaming, panicked, warning he won't walk away clean since this is a tiny market, while the blue flame glows. Ignoring the empty threats, Tenma raises his boot dismissively and asks what he plans to do about it, leaving the man in total panic beneath his boot. Facing the crushing pressure, Hiroki and his two goons slump to their knees on the floor, bowing their heads and begging forgiveness for everything they did in the past. The hunter calls him out on the bogus travel docs from past payouts, and the terrified manager promises to cover all his future costs. Setting the chat aside, Tenma looks around the office, curiously wondering if cash or some hidden treasure actually exists here. He watches the tiny blue energy flame floating. Catching that it is pointing specifically at one of the room's bookshelves, the young man reaches out and starts pulling books off the shelf, carefully searching for the hidden passage or secret item the potion pointed out. He finds a gray metal safe hidden right behind the shelf books, with the tiny blue energy flame floating right above it. The guy points at the safe and asks if that's it, making the kneeling man in the back tremble in fear and ask what he's planning. With a quick warning glance from the hunter, Hiroki instantly shrinks back onto the floor, screaming apologies, completely losing the nerve to fight back. Hiroki cockily notes that safe features a complex 20-digit passcode and that no skill in the world could crack it open. However, the Treasure Potion's virtual system displays the local currency symbol on screen, revealing every complex code was successfully cracked. He punches in the numbers shown on the potion's magic screen, curiously wondering what valuable treasure awaits inside that metal safe. He presses the keypad buttons in order, calmly entering the indicated codes under the disbelieving gaze of his old agency manager. The safe door pops open with a click, revealing several stacks of cash bills, and a sleek, shiny golden key stowed inside. Hiroki stands, slack-jawed, seeing the open safe, and Tenma flips through the papers, uncovering a log of the manager's various illegal payouts. The hunter grabs the key embedded with a mana crystal, and the system alerts him. It opens C-rank chests and can be sold for a solid fortune on the market. He decides to confiscate the key and valuable docs, ironically wondering if what he's doing is starting to look like actual theft. The document details the Yokohama dungeon, revealing the location packs tons of mana crystals and a heavy mental barrier at the entry. Tenma recognizes that dungeon and satisfies himself, concluding he can score a real fortune if he clears the place right. Hiroki begs on his knees for him to hand back the info, warning he dropped serious cash on it and that a D-rank hunter can't even enter. Flashing an ironic smirk, the guy confidently replies he will be the sole judge of whether he can enter the place or not. Suddenly, the office door swings open hard, revealing a mysterious man with long white hair and a long coat stepping into the room. The newcomer checks out the messy room and comments, surprised that he didn't expect to find someone else here ahead of him, picking up the info. Tenma stands in total shock upon recognizing the identity of that imposing man who just stepped into the room and is eyeing him closely. The mysterious white-haired man takes a few steps forward and calmly asks if the young hunter truly knows who he is dealing with. The MC realizes it is Kyosuke Sengoku, a legendary figure whose name was known by absolutely everyone in the ruined future world. Sengoku slaps a side smirk and surprises the guy by revealing he also knows his identity, calling him by the name Tenma Tsukishiro. The legendary hunter casually comments on the useless placeholder nickname the young man usually gets called around that workplace. He guides his sharp gaze toward the metal safe, already sitting fully open, catching that the kid was faster in scoring the evidence. With ultimate calm, Tenma holds out the dungeon investigation sheet and asks directly if that's exactly what he came looking for. Sengoku grabs the document, surprised by the guy's attitude, asking intrigued how he managed to guess the real reason for his office drop-by. On the floor, Hiroki drags himself desperate and begs for them not to take that report, asserting it's the most valuable thing he owns. Paying 0 mind to the yells, Sengoku coldly kicks the man away without mercy so he doesn't bug them further. The old boss slumps, knocked out on the floor after the hit, leaving the coast clear for both hunters to carry on their chat in peace. The man with glasses checks out the report and quietly complains about Hiroki's lies, revealing he spent serious time hunting down that secret document. Sengoku thanks the kid for his cooperation and politely states he would love to return the favor properly on another future occasion. He holds out a small card and seriously directs Tenma to call the phone number written on it in exactly 1 week's time. Tenma grips the paper and stands thoroughly amazed, barely able to believe he just scored the personal business card of the legendary hunter, Sengoku. Sengoku is an S-rank hunter considered both a hero and a monster, famous for using his spy network to predict the future demon invasion. The S-rank hunter walks toward the exit while the young man watches him go, aware of the massive information power that man holds before stepping out the door. Sengoku comments with a smile that he finds Tenma a genuinely fascinating person to observe. He ironically adds that it's wild how even a veteran like him got totally fooled by the kid's front. The MC keeps watching the legendary hunter head off, knowing that meeting will completely reshape his future plans. Sengoku takes off from the room thoroughly pleased, intrigued by finding someone so mysterious and skilled hiding under an F-rank cover. The man reveals he dug up everything and asks if he really thought the secret of the Night Raven Guild case would stay hidden from his spy network. He makes it clear he has zero intent to blackmail him with that secret info regarding his real battle strength. Sengoku merely confesses curiosity about his motives and says he would love to hear a full breakdown at their next meeting. The man says an enigmatic goodbye and vanishes completely amidst a white smoke magic mist, leaving Tenma alone in the office. The MC checks out the business card in his hands and, satisfied, reflects that scoring that direct contact was a play of pure luck for him. That instant, a system alert pops up on the virtual screen informing him he just acquired the Fresh Luck passive skill at level 1. The skill breakdown explains that the odds of running into good events and everyday luck have been significantly boosted from here on out. He smiles, realizing that with Sengoku in his corner, making cash will be a breeze, and scoring critical info on demons will become vastly simpler. The tiny blue flame goes out, and a floating alert notes that his treasure acquisition potion effect officially wrapped up at that moment. He opens the system shop interface to review options, noting the treasure potion is now sold out, leaving only other locked items behind. The hunter ponders that the powerful talent acquisition potion is still up, though he needs to stash more quest points to buy it. He chooses to focus on leveling up and spending the cash taken from Hiroki to buy essential raid gear for his upcoming exploration. The scene shifts to Ryuzan's busy shopping street, where the young hunter walks peacefully searching for portal gear shops. He steps into a shop and displays a shopping list on his phone to the clerk, who politely replies, asking him to hold on a moment. The guy leaves the shop carrying a heavy pack, shovel, and pickaxe, lamenting the absurd cost of over 1 million yen spent on those rare raid items. Checking his mobile banking app on his phone, he depressed observes his remaining balance plummeted to a mere 7,000 yen after the buy. The kid tries to comfort himself, forcing a teary smile, repeating to himself that the massive expense was just a necessary investment. Under Yokohama's late afternoon golden light, the hunter begins digging through rocks with his fresh pickaxe, set on finding more valuable resources. After major physical effort, he lets out a sigh of relief upon opening a secret stone passage leading straight into the dungeon interior. He starts descending the stone steps and catches the total lack of monsters at the entry, noting the psychic barrier presence, just like the report noted. A giant purple energy shield blocks the path, and he knows an unprepared hunter trying to force their way through would completely lose their mind. The moment he takes his first step toward the purple energy, a massive magic pressure hits his mind full force, making him grab his head, groaning in pain. Suddenly, his level 3 mind power passive triggers to resist the illusion, letting him keep calm facing that psychic attack. He drops to his knees with hands on his head, while illusory voices from the past insult him as a useless hunter and dead weight. One of the voices mocks him, asking how someone that weak would have the guts to call themselves a hunter. The guy feels every negative emotion from his past life rush back like a wave. As if returning to those old days, Gondo pops up in the illusion, blustering that bringing a goblin along would be way better than bringing a piece of garbage hunter like him. However, Tenma locks his mind, remembering he changed, and the system triggers level 3 mind power to fight off the magic. He leans against the stone wall, and the system alerts him. His mind power jumped to levels 4 and 5, catching his breath slowly. The hunter leans on the brick wall and keeps walking down the hallway. He admits he definitely wouldn't have cleared that barrier if he didn't pack that mental strength. He finally enters a giant dark stone chamber decorated with gargoyle statues along the walls. Further ahead, an even bigger and more powerful purple mental barrier than the first blocks his path. He finds it weird that he made it deep into the dungeon and still hasn't bumped into a single monster. Triggering his level 10 memory search skill, Tenma begins matching up the features of that portal. He recalls reports saying high C-rank hunters could step in, but that only applied to the initial stretch. Deep down, there's a mental lock that not even an S rank can clear, leaving the portal dominated by a demon commander. It's a commander wielding absolute SSS rank power, a terrifying entity that drove humanity to despair. Tenma remembers that beyond this barrier lies the gear that the future demon commander would use. He concludes the valuable items he can swipe from there are the true treasure indicated by the potion. According to the info, from here on out, he will have to face not just mental magic, but traps too. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoes down the stone hallway, and the young hunter instantly snaps onto alert. The area floods with purple energy, and Tenma lets out a groan of pain, taking another hit to his mind. Several lethal arrows are launched at him, forcing him to trigger level 10 perception and agility. The young man knows if he lacked the perception or mental power to resist, things would be awful. He would have been locked by the mental magic and easily hit and killed by that arrow storm. Knowing dodging by eye alone won't cut it, he triggers Perception 10 to dodge the second he catches the noise. The sharp projectiles drive deep into the stone floor, hitting only the empty space where he was standing. He pushes forward with speed and precision, executing swift moves to clear the traps untouched. The hunter uses his arms to dodge the remaining arrows with crazy agility amidst the attack. He pulls off an acrobat flip to escape, and the system notifies his mind power hit level 6. While sprinting past the giant arrow volley, his mind power level jumps to 7. He leaps nimbly dodging stone spears, and his mind power scales up to level 8. The guy pulls an air leap to dodge falling ceiling rubble, and his mind power hits level 9. Sprinting away from a giant round boulder chasing him down the hall, his mind power reaches level 10. He slides under the dangerous obstacle, and the system reveals his mind power broke the cap, hitting level 11. With max level reached, he catches shock that he feels completely fine even taking hits to his mind. The fresh screen reveals the anti-psychic magic skill, granting him total immunity against mental spells. Tenma strides with confident steps as a thick purple mist begins blanketing the dungeon floor. The hunter seriously inspects the glowing mist and catches that it carries a super weird energy. This fog marks the start of an illusion magic so intense that even S-rank hunters found it unbearable. Off to the side, the illusion of an old fallen warrior pops up crying and begging on his knees to be killed. Various tormented figures scream and apologize in despair, reliving their worst past traumas. But thanks to active level 11 mind power, Tenma maintains total calm and ignores those painful visions. The young hunter ignores the pleas and walks right past the terrifying projections without showing a flinch. At the far end of the large stone hall, a horned creature in dark armor waits for him holding a sword. He draws his blue sword and excitedly concludes that beating that warrior is the key to scoring the treasure. Suddenly, a heavy surge of blue electrical energy wraps around the blade and the young man's body. The system breaks down that beating the growth demon granted his weapon the power to absorb dark energy. Activating level 10 swordsmanship, Tenma pushes forward fearlessly, ready to test his sword's new power. Both warriors clash swords with extreme force, generating a heavy burst of magic energy. Tenma pushes his attack and drops a powerful glowing slash to break the enemy's defense. He sets his stance on the ground and notes his attacks aren't causing damage, forcing him to trigger level 10 endurance. The hunter catches that this boss, on top of being super tough, can imbue its sword with a heavy dark magic aura. Suddenly, 2 dark shadows materialize out of the stone floor, birthing 2 fresh armored warriors under the boss's command. Seeing the summoned monsters, the guy worriedly wonders if someone at level 20 like him really stands a shot at beating this challenge. However, time pauses for a second, and he starts questioning if beating these summoned minions would also yield combat XP. He remembers minions yield XP, and excitedly concludes that having ranked up to D rank, he is finally free to level up again. Knowing he will score major X beating the minions, he smiles confident, remembering his talentless adjustment will multiply those gains. Holding his sword coated in blue lightning, he pushes forward with zero fear straight at the 2 servants guarding the massive dungeon boss. He instantly triggers his level 7 intimidation skill, projecting a giant red eye in the air to weaken the targets. Capitalizing on the opening created by the pressure, he pulls off the Kirishima-style straight cut, launching a wave of sharp blue energy. The blue energy blade slices both armored servants in half simultaneously with total ease, wrecking the monsters in a second. Thanks to his talentless adjustment with the cap broken, the physical stats picked up by the guy receive a bonus multiplier boost. The system multiplies the earned exp by 100,000, making the hunter glow intensely in blue while leveling up several times back to back. The power flow keeps surging absurdly, and the virtual display confirms the guy hit the impressive level 30 mark. Seeing his minions wrecked, the dungeon boss roars furious and starts pooling a massive amount of purple lightning around the clearing. The giant monster charges furiously at him, dropping a devastating vertical blow, but the kid holds his stance and readies for the clash. He leaps with agility using the boost from his blue energy and parries the giant sword strike with a sharp, loud hit in midair. 2 of his level 10 skills assist him in executing complex, fast physical maneuvers midair while dodging with mastery capitalizing on the air opening. He drops like lightning, landing a devastating diagonal slash right against the opponent's heavy armor. He touches down flawless on the stone floor and drops into a swift defensive stance, while the monster staggers back from the strike's impact. The remaining exp flow gets processed by the system, and the guy levels up a few more times back-to-back super fast. He reaches the level 40 mark and peacefully notes that the armored minions finally stopped popping up across the stone floor. With a locked, confident glare, he faces the beast before him, and satisfied concludes that now all that's left is beating the big final boss. The massive knight raises his purple magic sword and slams the ground with extreme force, sending giant stone chunks flying at the guy. Without hesitating, Tenma dashes across the clearing and activates his level 10 straight cut to split the rocks clean in half. He obliterates the stone debris in an instant with the light strike and keeps charging straight at full speed toward the enemy. The kid strikes the opponent's metal shield dead on with his glowing sword, generating a deafening metal thud across the clearing. The massive collision of blue and purple energy sets off a violent power blast that shakes the whole stone chamber and cracks the ground around them. Amidst the swirl of dust and sparks, they engage in a contest of raw strength, each pushing ruthlessly to shove the other's weapon back. The sword starts siphoning the enemy's dark energy, and the hunter celebrates with a smile seeing his attack power rise thanks to his fresh strength. The system alerts that having hit level 40, bonus points from his evolution will now be converted into coins for the causality shop. The boss slumps defeated, and the system congratulates the hunter on the win, confirming the delivery of shop points and dungeon drops. A funny version of him pops up on screen explaining that unlike regular portals, underground dungeons always guarantee a treasure chest. He observes fascinated the golden glow popping up floating in the air, wondering what valuable item the future demon commander would use. The mysterious golden energy sphere drops down slowly until floating right above his palms, revealing the outline of a small item. To his surprise, the golden glow fades and reveals a plain, subtle dark metal ring resting peacefully in his hands. The hunter lets out an intrigued sigh and mentally concludes that looks are definitely deceiving and that he shouldn't judge the item by its simple look. The panel reveals it is the unique rank Ring of Defense, but warns the item's main combat features remain sealed. He catches surprise that it is a growth-type item and quickly recalls his special trait, multiplies all earned EXP by 100,000. The guy flashes a side smile, concluding the ring will scale up right alongside him absurdly fast by consuming his multiplied XP. Checking his personal status display, the young man notes his max level cap of 40 was hit and that he stashed over 300 shop points. The system alerts that having hit level 40, a fresh limit break quest unlocked on top of dropping a special bonus item. The virtual D-rank quest screen shows his new main goal is collecting 3 demon sources, leaving the hunter pondering the matter. He wonders if the system knows his true intent in returning to the past was precisely stopping the world's destruction by the demon invasion. He reflects the quest, timing is super precise, and recalls the real reason why the demon army hasn't invaded Earth yet. It happens because the human world environment differs from the demon realm, which kicked off the awful dark energy spreading scheme. It's the plan to scatter dark demon holy relics packed with evil energy across various strategic points on the human planet. By planting these demon sources in various Earth areas, the dark hordes plan to corrupt the land environment and prep total invasion. He recalls the shocking public trial and revealing testimony of the human traitor who secretly backed the demon's plans. The traitor mocked the angry execution crowd, sarcastically revealing the Dark Horde invasion didn't just start out of nowhere. Right before dying, the man laughingly revealed the demons had been making all these dark prep plays way before humans caught on. The traitor reveals they were gathering demon sources to plan the invasion of the human world in a project called the Demon Energy Project Crying Desperate. The man asserts he really didn't know. Those guys had that kind of awful plan lined up. The traitor adds sobbing that he had zero clue their plan was simply wiping out all of humanity. Right after, the guillotine blade drops brutally, sealing the end of that remorseful criminal's life. Tenma reflects that if he manages to destroy the demon sources, he can stop the Earth invasion for good and crush this dark scheme with his next main target set. The hunter decides it's time to finally check out the drops scored. A system message alerts that a special item is being delivered thanks to his limit break passive effect. He remembers he always scores powerful drops upon hitting the level cap, eagerly waiting to see what this reward turns out to be. The bright glow starts dimming before his eyes, slowly revealing the shape of the mysterious item popping up in midair. To the young man's surprise, the new piece of gear popping up floating in his hands is a powerful, shiny, double-headed spear. 1 week later, we catch Tenma walking peacefully toward the entry of a massive, modern city facility. He checks out the people around, thinking that peace is something he never saw before sliding back in time, promising to protect this world. Suddenly, Tenma's phone vibrates with a fresh message alert, making the young hunter look curious at the screen. He sees messages from Yuna demanding food and from his old boss Gondo apologizing, but chooses to ignore all that for now. He keeps walking through the facility's outer plaza, where various other geared-up hunters are also strolling back and forth. The hunter cracks a light smile, finding it funny that he genuinely ended up at that elite training facility. He breaks down that the Hunter Training Center is a spot every elite has hit, and that back in the day he skipped it due to lacking cash. Suddenly, the guy's sharpened senses react to the super loud roar of a car engine pulling up at high speed. A red sports car pops up drifting and dashes straight at Tenma, scaring nearby hunters. The system instantly triggers his level 10 perception skill, letting him dodge the vehicle with total ease. Super annoyed by the reckless driving, the young man yells, asking if the sports car driver is trying to kill him. The door of the sleek red car opens up slowly, revealing the driver is sporting a dark hooded coat. Tenma holds a high guard and watches the mysterious person step out of the ride with total calm right in the middle of the street. The hunter widens his eyes as he starts recognizing the outline of the person who just parked in that dangerous fashion. He keeps watching the hooded figure approach. Looking super confident with his flashy entrance, Tenma tries focusing his sight through the bright light popping up behind the driver to make absolute sure who it really is. The blue-haired youth pulls off his hood with a wide grin and calls him Master, celebrating the unexpected meeting in that location. The young man shows off the red car, saying he bought it with his guild bonus, and Tenma takes the chance to ask which group he joined. The blue-haired youth proudly replies he officially joined the prestigious Guardian Guild to kick off his career. A quick breakdown reveals Guardian's Sword, Silver Wing, and 5 Stars stand as the 3 largest and most powerful guilds in the country. Tenma deduces the guild picked up on Kirishima's Sword Saint talent and paid a massive signing bonus, breaking down the car purchase. The hunter politely asks the blue-haired youth to drop calling him master, but the kid immediately asks why Tenma confesses that title feels like way too heavy a load for him to carry, and Kirishima asks what he should call him. Then the hunter says calling him older brother would also feel weird, and ends up telling Kirishima to call him whatever he prefers. Kirishima starts thinking and comments that adding Sir to his name doesn't really sound supernatural to him either. Deciding to wrap up the topic, Tenma says goodbye and starts walking toward the building, leaving the young man stunned behind. Not wanting to be left behind, Kirishima starts sprinting quickly after the hunter, yelling for him to hold up a second. At reception, Tenma catches a fright over the absurd room rates per session and decides to start by renting just an A-rank room. Kirishima pops up out of nowhere beside him and extends a fancy VIP membership card to the training center clerk. The clerk smiles and immediately offers to guide both hunters to the exclusive VIP special training room. Tenma nearly catches a heart attack seeing on the panel that a single session in that VIP room costs a whopping 3 million yen. Kirishima winks, asking if he wants to tag along and calls him Master, making the hunter accept on the spot, calling him his dear disciple. Stepping into the giant test room, several holographic projections of dragons and flying magic monsters pop up at the top of the stage. With a swift movement, a powerful projectile gets launched against the reinforced wall, setting off a loud impact that cracks the structure. The sharp tip of the fresh spear cuts through the air at mind-boggling speed. Effortlessly wrecking the target test holograms, Tenma shows off outstanding skill with the double-headed spear, moving his body with agility and precision through the entire run. He analyzes the unique rank homing spear stats and smiles, noting it snaps back to his hand whenever he thinks the command word. Kirishima walks over, praising the fresh weapon, and curiously asks about the special moves that Formidable Gear packs. With his level 11 throwing skill active, Tenma calmly replies, he simply chucked the weapon with solid power. The hunter concludes this spear's destructive power temporarily beats his main sword, serving as a super useful sidearm. In the simulation room, the monster holograms let out a fierce roar and charged straight at both hunters, set on not lagging behind his master. Kirishima leaps nimbly to take on the creatures face to face. He lets out a powerful battle cry while dropping fast slashes that slice the energy monsters in midair. The young swordsman executes a clean vertical cut right down the middle of a giant glowing serpent trying to bite him. Tenma watches the scene impressed by precision worthy of a sword saint. Acknowledging he couldn't even fake that, Kirishima lands on the floor with style, firmly gripping his twin swords as dust kicks up around him. However, the blue-haired youth disappointed laments, catching that his strike's execution didn't quite land how he wanted. He asks the master to show off the straight cut one more time, and Tenma catches that the kid still needs to polish that technique. Tenma guides the kid to apply the sky and earth connection theory in his swings, but Kirishima stands confused on how to pull it off. To make learning easier, the hunter decides to take an impressive leap to show the proper execution of the movement. Tenma pulls the move with his sword, while a screen shows his straight cut hit level 19 at nearly 100%. Thanks to his absurd X boost, his technique evolves instantly and hits level 11 with crushing power. The shockwave generated by the strike is so destructive that Kirishima has to guard using both blades while complaining about the impact. The hunter lands calmly with his sword, wrapped in glowing blue flames, demonstrating total control over his attack's energy. Hyped, Kirishima hugs Tenma's legs and names the strike after his last name, but the guy says awkwardly, it was no big deal. Crying with emotion, the blue-haired youth praises the master for evolving a skill like that in such an incredible way. Right then, the hunter's phone starts ringing again, grabbing Tenma's focus, who quickly pulls the device out of his pocket. He looks at the phone screen and catches he's getting an important call from Kyosuke Sengoku Tenma, thanks him for the room use and says he needs to bounce due to an emergency, leaving the kid kneeling defeated on the floor. The hunter passes through the automatic room door and leaves, while Kirishima stays behind, watching him go in silence. Alone in the room, Kirishima tightens his fist with resolve and vows that one day he will reach that level of mastery in the technique. Later, at a charming outdoor cafe, Tenma meets up with Sengoku, who thanks him for the valuable help picked up the other day. Sengoku breaks down that his guild's positioning completely flipped thanks to him, friendly stating that was a stroke of divine luck. The man sets a coffee cup on the table and lets him know he'd like to show his deep gratitude in a real special way. With a light smile, Sengoku reveals, he holds a personal rule to always pay back favors people do for him. He adds saying he hates owing anyone, leaving Tenma thinking over that informant's true motives. Tenma recalls the ruined future, where Sengoku acted as a super calculating informant and called him by his real F-rank name. In his memory, Sengoku used to say he was an ally of humanity, but didn't do charity, demanding useful info or skills to throw help. The hunter reflects the Sengoku in his memories was quite different from regular basic heroes, acting always driven by pure logic. He concludes that since Sengoku calculates everything cold, that means he has now become a super critical ally for his plans. Tenma then sets a massive travel bag on the table and asks if the informant is truly ready to pay back the favor as promised. Sengoku opens the bag curious, and the guy explains, those are valuable mana crystals picked up from a secret dungeon belonging to Gondo. Facing the intense orange glow of the gems, the hunter asserts he would like to trade and swap those mana crystals with him. Tenma finishes the offer saying he wants to run this business deal not just once, but continuously from here on out. The young hunter knows trading so many unknown crystals without a backing guild would be tough, but trusts his financial interests. Sengoku accepts the deal on the spot and assures he keeps his word, making Tenma recall he indeed promised total cooperation. Mentally celebrating the treasure potion's sweet effect, Tenma places a folded paper on the table and says he needs one more thing. The informant opens the paper, intrigued, and catches. It's a list packed with various names, strategic spots, and even items. They are clues about which Tenma holds only vague ideas, and where he hopes detailed info on demon sources actually exists. Trusting the man's crazy reach and spy network, the young hunter asks him to run a full search on those details. Sengoku checks out the info and comments thoughtfully that he'd love to help, but that investigation scale is way bigger than he guessed. He proposes it would be massive help if Tenma also backed him on a side mission, and the young hunter accepts the deal right then. The man calls him a D-rank mercenary using his real name, leaving the guy thoroughly surprised that he already knows his actual rank. Sengoku breaks down that they are prepping a special raid on a restricted D-rank dungeon, needing someone with his exact skill set. Tenma catches he finally hit the crucial point and discovers the real reason why Sengoku chose to set up that meeting with him. The informant displays a photo of a large diamond and reveals he urgently needs the guy to bring back the legendary Jewel of Aldoria. Tenma grows thoughtful and tries digging through memory for that relic name, feeling the Jewel of Aldoria sounds super familiar. The young man asks if he'll be the sole hunter running this raid, and Sengoku replies he gathered other impressive D-rank talents. With a sharp look behind his glasses, the informant suggests if the hunter wouldn't like to meet the rest of the raid party first, he arrives at the set spot and timidly greets the talented hunters Sengoku recruited to build this fresh elite squad. Approaching the hunters, Tenma wonders to himself if these are the supposed talents, while the big guy suggests doing quick introductions. The big guy introduces himself as Masayoshi Yakumo, revealing he's 27 and asking the attackers to trust his work as a tank. Tenma recognizes the man from his memories as Yakumo of the Iron Wall, a cowardly guy known for abusing rookies in the hunter world. Next, the long-haired youth timidly introduces himself as Yozaki, revealing he specializes in using lightning magic. He recalls that Jin Yozaki actually becomes the electric psycho in the future, a terrifying villain who took many innocent lives. A pink-haired girl introduces herself saying her main weapon is a dagger, while Tenma thinks Sengoku really only focuses on merit. Catching the hunter staring at her non-stop, the girl sharply asks what on earth he's looking at so intently. She says they just need to wrap up the job fast, and that there's no need for intros, making Tenma finally remember who she is. Hearing the guy drop her full name, Akane Hoshimori gets startled and asks suspiciously how he knows who she is. Tenma offers a light smile and thinks that, despite everything, Sengoku at least threw in one genuinely decent person into the party. He recalls that people in the ruined future carried heavy trauma and deep suffering that made many slowly lose their minds. Amidst all that madness, figures popped up called eccentrics, bizarre characters of the new world that the pink-haired girl belonged to. She survived purely by robbing humans, demons, and monsters without distinction, not even sparing the most needy refugees in that place. Finding it ironic bumping into her here, Tenma hears the girl ask if there's something on her face and question what his real ID is. He calmly replies, his name is Tenma Tsukishiro, a D-rank hunter specializing in combat using mainly swords and spears. Yakumo drops a loud laugh to break the ice and suggests the party finally start moving toward the trial portal. The four hunters begin walking up the hill side by side toward the giant glowing golden portal floating before them, taking his first step across the energy barrier. A system alert confirms the hunters' official entry into the special dungeon. The system validates the whole team's access after verifying every member hits the max level requirement for D-rank hunters. Right after crossing the entry, Tenma opens his eyes and bumps into a super unexpected, tough environment inside that dungeon. The hunters suddenly find themselves in the middle of an endless, scorching desert beneath a heavy sun punishing the whole area around. While Akane and Yozaki complain about the unbearable heat, Yakumo digs through his inventory and notes he bought a few ice kits before entry. The big guy proudly displays a glowing blue magic cooling block, ideal for keeping body temp stable in that dry climate. Tenma slaps the cold item on his arm and deduces Sengoku must have dropped pre-raid info to them. Making Yakumo the official party leader, Akane celebrates relieved with the cool breeze on her head, while Yakumo guides the squad to start advancing across the desert on high guard. Packing their gear, the four hunters begin the long march across the fine sand dunes beneath the dungeon's clear blue sky. Suddenly, Tenma requests everyone to stop walking right now, grabbing the curious, suspicious focus of the other team members. Triggering his level 10 perception, the young man seriously warns his squadmates that a dangerous magic creature is lurking just ahead. Yakumo puts a hand to his forehead trying to see further across the desert horizon, but complains saying he catches absolutely nothing. The tank grips his shield and arrogantly states he'll block any attack and that, being the leader, everyone should just follow his lead. Seconds later, a major sandburst sets off right before them, and a giant scorpion with a metal shell erupts out of the underground. Surprised by the monster's sudden pop-up, Yakumo admits Tenma was right and praises the sharp sight the young hunter proved to have. Yakumo quickly sets his stance on the battlefront line and yells out for all his squadmates to stack up behind his shield. The tank taunts the monsters, shouting for them to come hit him, while the system triggers his level 5 taunt passive skill. Drawn by the glowing taunt, the scorpions let out sharp shrieks and charge furiously straight at the defending hunter. The creature's sharp claws slam violently into the green energy barrier generated by Yakumo's shield, which holds up fine against the hit. While Yakumo blocks the attacks, Yozaki creates a glowing lightning sphere in his hands and alerts he's dropping his electric magic next. The guy fires a powerful, concentrated blue electric beam that travels across the desert, hitting the grouped creatures dead on. A massive electric blast hits the giant scorpion group, kicking up major dust and smoke in the middle of the intense desert battle. Capitalizing on the opening created by the electric attack, Akane launches at high speed against the remaining creatures to land her slashes. Pulling blazingly fast, precise moves, the pink-haired girl shreds the scorpion's limbs and shells with her daggers. The sliced bits of the defeated monsters crash heavy onto the sand dunes, signaling the first enemy wave was wiped out. Yakumo praises Akane's swift combat performance, but she simply sheathes her weapons and dismissively replies that was nothing major. Tenma observes the group's teamwork and, satisfied, concludes they form a real solid squad, feeling he won't even need to step into the fight. Sarcastic, Akane walks over to the guy and asks why he doesn't at least pretend to do something useful to help the raid party. Out of nowhere, an insanely heavy tremor starts shaking the entire desert violently, making Tenma shift his expression on the spot. Super spooked by the sudden tremor's strength, Akane asks what's happening, and Tenma warns something massive is coming. In the blink of an eye, a colossal pincer erupts, tearing through the sand floor right beneath Akane, shocking everyone with the attack's speed. The giant metal claw closes fast around Akane's body, trapping the pink-haired girl without offering a split second to escape. As Akane lets out a desperate scream of terror, a colossal humanoid scorpion rises out of the sand, revealing itself as the area's terrifying boss. Desperate, Yozaki asks what they should do, and Yakumo complains his taunt skill isn't working due to the massive level gap between them. Seeing the imminent danger his ally is in, Tenma sets his stance on the sand and readies to move fast to save her. Tenma's mind travels to future memories of Akane, where she gently woke a young boy named Kyoya in the refugee camp. In the memories, the old Tenma asks the boy for silence and tells him to follow without making noise to ensure nobody catches them. Kyoya asks, confused why he called him out suddenly in the middle of the night, just to dig a deep hole in the wrecked dirt floor. The hunter points to the bottom of the dig and tells the boy to look at what was hidden there, leaving young Kyoya completely blown away. He widens his eyes, seeing a bucket packed with snacks and juice boxes, asking startled where on earth the man managed to find all that. The man smiles and breaks down that he worked super hard to stash all those special treats just to drop them as a birthday gift for him. The future hunter looks warmly at the boy and asks in a gentle tone if today wasn't actually his birth anniversary. With happy tears streaming down his face, the boy flashes a massive ear-to-ear grin and thanks him big time for that sweet gesture. The hunter hands over the bucket of treats and advises him to eat everything in total secret so he doesn't get caught, receiving a hyped reply from the kid. Suddenly, amidst all that joy, Kyoya takes a violent, unexpected hit from behind, tragically interrupting the happy moment. The boy drops passed out on the floor right before Akane, who pops up dressed in her black pro-thief gear wearing a mask covering her face. The future hunter flies into a total rage, instantly recognizing the thief by the name Hoshimori, yelling out in anger. Skip wasting time on talk, the thief executes a fast move, dodging nimbly to slip away carrying the jacked food supplies. She drops a fast counter-strike that hits the future hunter dead on, making him stagger back while trying to catch his breath. Akane coldly pulls away, while the hunter sprints desperate to the hole, realizing every single one of the boy's precious treats was stolen. Next, we see Akane's gloved hand calmly popping open one of the soda cans she had just jacked from the little kid. Showing zero remorse or pity, the pink-haired thief drinks the soda in the middle of the gray, wrecked city backdrop. Shortly after, empty snack wrappers and juice bottles appear tossed on the floor, consumed without a single care. Kyoya cries heartbroken seeing everything was eaten, while the old Tenma laments frustrated over failing to protect the boy's birthday gift. Tenma reflects he will never forget that thief's cold stare as she jacked the valuable supplies like treasure, ruining Kyoya's birthday party. Back in the present, inside the dungeon, the pink-haired girl screams desperate for help while getting squeezed hard by the monster's giant claw. While the colossal humanoid scorpion lets out a terrifying roar, Yozaki trembles in fear on the ground, and Yakumo tries holding firm before the beast. Tenma sprints full speed toward the creature and yells for the tank to use his shield right now, startling the warrior with the sudden command. The young hunter charges full speed across the desert sand, ignoring the danger and locking purely on the giant monster's weak point. Yakumo manages to raise his wooden shield in time to block the violent strike dropped by one of the scorpion boss's secondary claws. Capitalizing on the distraction generated by the shield block, Tenma readies his homing spear wrapped in a powerful glowing blue energy. He knows full well that giant creature species' weak spot is its head, locking his aim right at the top of the monster's skull. With the system triggering his level 11 throwing skill, the guy launches the gear with absurd speed and precision through the air. The glowing spear travels straight with massive destructive power, piercing through the creature's head, splitting its metal body. The giant scorpion explodes into hundreds of shell pieces, freeing Akane from the nasty claw. Sending the pink-haired girl dropping onto the sand, Tenma drags the girl upside down by her legs across the sand without the slightest care. While she spits dust and complains about his total lack of chivalry, Yakumo stands amazed and asks if the guy was hiding all that insane strength, while Akane coughs on the floor trying to recover from the close call. The young hunter turns his gaze away peacefully, feeling he finally settled past scores regarding what she pulled in the future. Still on the ground, the pink-haired thief catches Tenma's observing stare and mutters confused, not getting his mysterious thoughts. Suddenly, a massive sand whirlwind forms in the center of the crater where the group was fighting, revealing the danger. Here is far from over. The sandy ground starts collapsing fast beneath the warriors' boots, setting off party panic as a giant hole opens up right under them. Yakumo recognizes frantic that it's a giant antlion natural trap and screams at the top of his lungs for everyone to run out of there, ASAP. Akane slips on the shifting sand, getting pulled back toward the crater bottom, screaming furious, asking why this only happens to her, watching the scene with a light, ironic smile. Tenma mentally notes that that's nothing short of karma, and a future score coming full circle. Atop a rocky cliff near the crater, two mysterious men dressed in black suits watch the group's movement on the sand dune. The scarred hunter explains the guildmaster ordered them to skip direct confrontation and focus purely on securing the demon source. However, the other suit partner adjusts his tie, smiling, and replies to his buddy that he read the boss's orders wrong. With a malicious glare, he breaks down that the order means they pack clearance to eliminate anyone stepping in the way of their plans. A short-haired platinum guy named Riku Himuro pops up crouched and mocks the duo, asking if they are really going to blow this perfect shot. A narration pops up explaining that Black Knot is publicly known as one of the country's most successful and influential mid-rank guilds. Despite looking like a respectable professional hunter group on the outside, the reality behind their secret ops is extremely dark. It's actually a criminal faction made of villain hunters mixed up in awful crimes like robbery, arson, and murder. In the association office, an aide alerts Sengoku that Riku Himuro entered the dungeon, confirming the rival guild's hostile presence on site. Kyosuke Sengoku calmly asks his subordinate if he indeed passed the correct orders to the guild hunters. The order was to cruelly wipe out anyone getting in the way, dropped by Hiroki Igarashi, known down the line as humanity's big traitor. Swallowing hard due to the tense room vibe, the subordinate confirms on a shaky voice that the wipeout order was issued as planned. Right after, the man quietly steps out of the meeting room, leaving the guild leader alone with his dark thoughts. The door shuts smoothly, keeping the fancy office environment quiet and isolated from the rest of the building. In a burst of rage, Igarashi slams his fist hard against the desk, cracking the floor around while fuming with extreme hatred. He complains outraged over how a random guild scored ownership of the dungeon, ruining his plans to recruit D-rank elites to clear it. Super scared and breaking into a cold sweat, he mutters that if they lose the demon source, that mysterious terrifying entity will definitely kill him. Meanwhile, back in the special dungeon desert, the three Black Knot Guild hunters keep watching the party from atop the cliff. Himuro mocks his partners and asks if they are idiots for hesitating to attack, since they hold clear sign-off to wipe out the squad. The scarred hunter turns around annoyed and sternly warns that he is the raid leader and won't tolerate any insubordination. In the blink of an eye, a heavy hand pops up violently covering the leader's entire face. Cutting his speech short with a surprise blow, Himuro uses his raw brute strength to drive his own leader's head straight into the stone floor, shattering the rock structure on impact. A massive splash of blood spreads across the hot desert sand, instantly and brutally ending that raid leader's life. The ponytail hunter leaps backward in absolute shock, witnessing his teammates' cruelty, screaming in pure terror at the sight. The guy in the suit screams frantic, asking what he thinks he's doing, and Himuro coldly replies, "They are going to fight and die right here." The man calls him a crazy bastard and demands to know the reason, but Himuro merely wipes blood off his face and asks if he needs a reason to kill. With a psychopathic smile plastered across his bloodied face, the platinum hunter laughingly confesses he does it simply because he finds it super fun. Overcome with panic upon catching his partner's madness, the ponytail hunter loses his balance and falls backward onto the desert sand. Licking blood off his hand, Himuro mocks his buddy's despair, saying he loves seeing that mix of betrayal, anger, and pure terror on his face. He drops one final sarcastic question before landing a lethal blow on the fallen partner, who lets out an awful scream of pain before perishing alone atop the rocky cliff. The platinum killer watches the horizon while the heavy desert wind blows and sways his clothes. With a calm, confident face, he concludes that now the battle officially turned into a 1-versus-4 warrior match. Himuro grins eager, thinking he can't wait to see the face of despair plastered across every single member of Tenma's party. At night, gathered around a campfire, the hunters comment on the rapid major weather shift of the dungeon, making it feel like a campout. Yakumo reveals his big dream is founding a free, independent guild down the line, taking the chance to invite his teammates to join him. Tenma watches him in silence, remembering that dream guild would actually be marked by awful abuse that would drive a rookie to death in the future. Quietly and thoughtfully, Yozaki politely declines the leader's invite, vaguely commenting he holds personal plans and other goals to hit, hearing the long-haired youth's refusal. Tenma thinks to himself that this other plan actually boils down to murdering innocent civilians with lightning. Akane also gets up from the campfire and coldly declines the warrior's offer, asserting she holds zero interest in joining the guild. The pink-haired girl reveals smiling that her real-life goal is joining the Hero Association and saving needy people. Tenma finds it hilarious seeing a pro thief wanting to become a hero and stands up, prompting Akane to ask where the guy is heading. Firmly holding his sword, the hunter evasively replies, he's just going to take a short walk around that desert campout. Walking through the dark brush, he reflects morning might take time to arrive and concludes he can't just sit around waiting for time to pass. Triggering his memory search, he spots a giant pyramid and recalls the traitor. Igarashi revealed the demon source was hidden inside. Suddenly, his active level 10 perception passive triggers an audio alert and levels up upon picking up a hidden presence in the shadows. With fast, precise reflexes, the hunter turns around and firmly grabs the hand of the mysterious intruder trying to sneak up on him. He executes a firm wrist twist to neutralize any attack possibility and secure his safety in the dark. To his surprise, the one letting out a sharp squeal of pain is Akane, who complains about the tight grip and tries to slip out of the hold. Realizing who it is, Tenma lets her go, and she asks amazed how he managed to spot her, since she was running advanced stealth techniques. The hunter asks why she's tailing him, and Akane breaks down that she found the campfire duo super fishy and felt safer tagging along with him. Tenma starts building a plan and mentally concludes that using Akane's special thief skill, he can score the demon source with total ease. The young hunter simply tells her to follow close, making the pink-haired girl curiously ask which spot they are heading toward. Standing before the giant pyramid, Tenma asserts what she loves most is inside, leaving her confused on how he'd know that since they just met today. She displays her alert screen and says her danger sense warns the spot is bad, but Tenma mocks, reminding her she fell into the desert trap. Embarrassed by the tease, Akane tries to justify saying she just wasn't having a good day, but guarantees he won't regret listening to her. Totally ignoring the girl's loud protests, Tenma keeps climbing with firm steps up the stone stairs leading toward the dark entrance. Checking out the guy's profile, Akane blushes light, catching he's handsome and decides to drop her vote of trust on him for saving her life earlier. She starts sprinting up the stairs after him and yells out a funny threat for him to wait up, warning she won't forgive him if things go wrong. Tenma smiles and deduces her danger sensor didn't trip earlier because the system predicted he would save her, since the skill doesn't trip if the end is safe. Walking down the dark pyramid hall, Akane worryingly comments on a bad vibe she caught right at the entry. Suddenly, she stops intrigued and scratches her head upon catching that the awful bad feeling simply vanished without a trace. Tenma tells her to just follow him without worries, but the girl defends herself saying she didn't do anything wrong and that she feels something major there. The hunter simply commands her to keep following him, while a system screen alerts his perception, XP shot way up. The system confirms his perception, hit level 11 and unlocked an effect, letting him view some notifications from his allies hyped. Akane sprints ahead through the dark hall and calls out loud to prove once and for all the real power of her danger sense. Tenma watches her from afar, while the girl dives into the deep darkness of the temple, yelling back that everything is completely safe. Suddenly, a giant boulder comes rolling and chasing down the girl, who runs desperate, screaming that this usually doesn't happen. Sprinting past the guy, Akane yells terrified, asking if he's not going to run too, but Tenma simply draws his sword with total calm. With a single powerful energy cut from his sword, the hunter cleaves the giant boulder in half, saving her life. Akane stands slack-jawed, facing such a display of raw brute strength and asks disbelief if he is really just a D-rank hunter. The system triggers Tenma's level 11 perception skill, which instantly catches that a compartment or item sits beneath the floor. Seconds later, the stone floor cracks completely and collapses right before both hunters, uncovering a secret subfloor passage. Tenma calmly notes he found a great shortcut, leaving the pink-haired girl deeply thoughtful regarding his true identity. Both walk side by side into a massive, mysterious underground chamber, lit by a soft yellowish light in the background. Amazed and a bit spooked by the scale of that stone room, Akane asks in a low tone if that creature would be the big boss. The hunter recalls the traitor. Igarashi revealed the Sphinx held the demon source, while a voice echoes dropping a welcome. The mysterious voice commands them to pass the sandstorm trial, making Akane complain outraged over being dragged into the test. Suddenly, several orange magic circles start glowing bright around the massive Sphinx stone statue in the chamber. A violent fire and sand explosion swallows the whole area, forcing both hunters to scramble for a safe spot to duck frantic over the heat and flames. The girl asks what they're going to do, and Tenma quickly orders for them to scale to the top of the Sphinx. Both draw on their full physical agility to climb the stone body of the giant statue, while flames consume the room floor below. They manage to land safely right on top of the Sphinx's head, far out of the fire, wrecking everything on the chamber floor. She asks, confused, if the test is just surviving the fire, but Tenma alerts they are going to pull a different play and tells her to get ready. The hunter reveals their fresh play will simply be stealing, making the pink-haired girl drop a loud squeal of shock on the spot. She asks, annoyed, what he's trying to make her do, and the guy calmly replies he wants her to do what she does best. Tenma reaches out and firmly grips Akani's wrist to launch the play, while the pink-haired girl screams, startled for him to hold up a second. Displaying an empty wallet, he smiles, commenting she can swipe any item with her technique, just like she did pickpocketing everyone. Swallowing hard, she says she doesn't know how he cracked her special technique and sharply turns down the order, asking why she should listen to him. Right at that exact instant, the giant sphinx's stone eyes start glowing with an intense, dangerous red shade, shaking the whole stage. A fresh, even more violent wave of flames and explosions swallows the chamber, dropping the hunter's surroundings into a critical state of danger. The hunter shouts energetically for her not to waste time, warning that if she doesn't want to die here, she needs to use her steel on the Sphinx right now. The system triggers absolute steel while the thief screams frantic out loud that she should have never agreed to tag along with the guy on this run. To guarantee his ally's safety while she channels the skill, Tenma executes a fast straight cut that obliterates the enemy attack's fury. Tenma's level 11 perception analyzes his ally and confirms the success of Akani's absolute steel, which begins pulling the hidden treasure out of the Sphinx. While the monster complains desperate that its body is falling apart, Tenma admires her absolute steel, capable of swiping even dungeon rewards. The creature tries frantically to drop its classic riddle regarding the stages of man's life, but its voice fades out as the statue cracks. The Sphinx lets out one final roar of pain and explodes completely. While both hunters sprint fast to avoid getting hit by the rubble, Tenma teases the fact that she wants to be a hero while being a thief, and Akani defends herself saying, the technique doesn't matter, as long as it's used for good. The system alerts that the cleared trial drops are being properly distributed, and Akani receives the glowing item directly into her hands. The pink-haired girl celebrates amazed, seeing a massive pile of gold coins pop up on the chamber floor alongside a mysterious metal box. She checks out the box, holding the glowing purple crystal, and reads on the system alert that the item is a genuine demon source. Tenma holds out his hand seriously and says he's taking that item, making Akani hesitate upon catching the dark energy radiating off it, holding a gold coin. She quietly notes she found the guy super suspicious from the start and that her gut was totally right. He promises to explain everything later and offers that if she hands over the dark energy source, she can keep the rest of the gold coin loot. With dollar signs glowing in her eyes out of pure greed, the thief agrees instantly to the deal, saying he can keep just that item. The hunter scores the first of the 3 required demon sources and receives a temporary 1-hour bonus from the system to unlock high-level techniques. With a fast, precise strike using his blade, the guy cracks the outer metal box to release the magic essence stashed in the crystal. The system confirms Tenma's Soul Eater sword successfully consumed the dark energy released, permanently boosting its attack power. Sheathing his blade, the hunter answers Akani's curious question by lying that he packs a skill to analyze all his opponent's techniques. Akani thinks he packs a great skill and is super cute, concluding laughingly to herself that she can smell cash coming off him. Shortly after, both hunters return peacefully to the campout area and group back up with Yakumo and Yozaki. The leader asks suspicious where they were heading off together so late at night, making Akani get annoyed and ask what he's trying to imply. Tenma breaks down. He was just dropping life advice to her, and the girl forcibly agrees, leaving Yakumo still pretty suspicious. The tank sternly asserts he is the leader and bans any solo moves without his okay, making the guy accept in silence, even finding the attitude weird. Yakumo guides the squad to lock on the goal of beating the boss fast and scoring the jewel of Aldoria in the pyramid to avoid wasting energy unnecessarily. With the tank leading the line holding his wooden shield, the 4 hunters begin exploring the dark, damp hallways of the underground temple. Hordes of scary mummies with red eyes start surrounding them, leading Tenma to mentally conclude the big boss is definitely right nearby. Holding his double-headed spear wrapped in blue lightning, the guy decides with a friendly smile that it's time to start stashing causality coins. Chucking his gear with precision, the hunter wipes out 6 mummies instantly, receiving an alert that he scored 42 shot points. Yakumo stands fascinated seeing the guy also masters spears, greedily thinking he'll get rich if he manages to get him working under him. The tank praises the guy's performance and promises to recruit him into his guild one day, but Tenma calmly tells him to lock on the path ahead. Akani whispers, asking if he's really D rank since his strength defies logic, but the young man retorts, reminding her the portal is locked to that tier. The group hits a large chamber and bumps into a giant solid sand block in the center of the hall, making Yozaki question if that's the boss. The massive cube structure starts breaking apart and collapsing with noise, kicking up a giant dust and rock curtain around everyone. The rubble groups up and takes the shape of a colossal red-eyed sand golem, making the party leader note that creature looks like trouble. Confident, Yakumo triggers his bright green taunt and yells, grabbing the opponent's focus, claiming the fight will be a breeze once it locks on the shield. The golem's giant stone fist slams directly into the tank's energy shield, carving alarming cracks into his protection barrier. Under the absurd pressure of the opponent's colossal strike, Yakumo's green magic shield shatters completely into dozens of tiny glowing bits. Yakumo is hurled with extreme violence against the stone chamber wall, falling passed out and helpless onto the floor after taking the awful impact. In total panic, seeing the tank wiped out in a single hit, Yozaki takes steps back and screams desperate, begging the monster to stop. The giant sand golem ignores the knocked-out warrior and strides with heavy, destructive steps directly toward the exposed electric mage. Yozaki lets out a scream of terror and fires a desperate, messy blue electricity beam at the colossal creature charging at him. The magic electric stream hits the sand monster's chest dead on, generating bright sparks, but causing zero actual damage to the rock shell. He keeps pooling all his mana and firing the electric magic non-stop in a desperate move to try and slow down the enemy's fatal approach. The colossal creature simply ignores the lightning barrier and drops a devastating punch that hurls the electric mage far away without mercy. Akane watches everything horrified and asks on a shaky voice if the teammate actually died after taking that awful punch. The hunter reasons a D-rank opponent shouldn't pack that much power, deducing it buffed up by absorbing energy from the local demon source. Tenma commands the girl to pull her composure together and run to the far side, directing that they run the exact same play used against the previous boss. The colossal sand golem flexes its stone legs and drops a terrifying leap toward the two hunters remaining standing in the chamber. The creature touches down with destructive force on the floor, opening a giant crack in the rock and kicking up a massive dust storm across the room. With perception and agility skills active at level 11, the guy dodges with mastery the rubble flying straight in his direction. The hunter uses the momentum and leaps with precision over the opponent's giant arm, dodging nimbly out of a lethal strike. Spinning in midair with sword drawn, he mentally concludes the giant opponent's real weak point is located in its mana core. To secure a quick win in one shot, the guy triggers his sword's soul release, massively cranking up the reach and power of his next swing. He executes his devastating straight cut with the glowing blade, slicing through the thick stone layer protecting the creature's inner chest. The strike opens a giant fissure in the rock, revealing the orange mana core acting as the golem's power source, glowing intense mid-chest. Tenma yells out the pink-haired thief's name for her to speed up the play, and the girl leaps from above toward the monster's exposed weak point. The hunter commands out loud for her to aim dead on at the energy core and use her thief skill to swipe the magic creature's vital item. The system confirms the activation of the girl's level 4 absolute steel as she extends her hand wrapped in a bright reddish aura toward the chest. Tenma reasons that, running on magic engineering, they just need to swipe ownership of that core to force the golem's full shutdown. To both of their horror, a red alert pops up on the system screen, warning the steel failed because the power gap between them is massive. The giant stone monster rises furious over the helpless girl dropped on her knees in the sand, prepping to crush her without mercy. Looking at the hunter with terror plastered across her face, Akane asks desperate what they're going to do, and the guy yells ordering her to run out of there now. Both hunters start sprinting fast across the stage, while the colossal golem with glowing eyes chases them with heavy steps, shaking the chamber. Triggering level 11 strength and throwing skills, Tenma decides to switch up his battle tactics and readies his glowing homing spear with a firm grip. The hunter executes an impressive throw that cuts through the golem's arm and shell with ease, temporarily slowing down the monster's advance. The system alerts that his techniques leveled up fighting a strong opponent, dropping the super rare weapon swap skill to the guy. The fresh alert confirms that now the guy can execute instant weapon swaps for any gear in his inventory right in the middle of intense battles. With his destruction output temporarily boosted by 3% thanks to weapon swapping, Tenma charges ruthlessly against the stone enemy. Tenma pulls off his straight cut with absolute mastery against the stone legs of the colossal sand golem trying to crush him. The monster lets out a monstrous roar of pure agony as it loses balance and starts collapsing heavy and loud onto the sand. That same instant, the system triggers the weapon swap skill, and the hunter wields his homing spear again with an intense blue glow. With the quick skill trigger, his weapon swap jumps to level 2, while he chucks the gear again at the fallen monster. Executing the fast swap sequence, the guy watches the skill scale up rapidly, hitting level 5 within seconds. The system alerts that the swapped weapon's destructive damage was amplified by 15%, letting him drop an even more devastating attack. The blue spear wrapped in lightning strikes the sand monster's chest dead on, piercing straight through its exposed mana core with massive force. He instantly draws his Soul Eater sword, making his weapon swap skill jump consecutively up to level 8. With the swap damage buff bumped to 24%, Tenma executes a crushing sword strike that shreds the enemy's defenses. In another swift move, he draws the homing spear, and the system updates the swap technique to max level 10 for the first time ever. The pink-haired girl watches in absolute shock as the panel confirms swap damage hit 30% and unlocked a bonus effect. The system reveals that now the hunter can instantly imbue a solid amount of magic into his swapped weapons during combat. He concentrates his mana and drops a thunderous magic thrust that hits the sand creature's cracked core dead on with a brutal impact, unable to hold up against. Such destructive magic power, the sand golem explodes completely, scattering dust and crystals across the chamber. The system confirms the defeat of the dungeon's mechanical golem boss, dropping 428 extra shop points to the young warrior, letting out a long sigh of relief for finally wrapping up the fight. Tenma hears Akane praise him and admit with a smile that he is indeed super good. An intense golden glow pops up in midair, delivering the dungeon's final drop, revealing itself as the highly coveted, formidable jewel of Aldoria. Holding the precious gem in his hands, he reads in the virtual breakdown that the D-rank ++ relic holds the soul of a queen who sacrificed her own life. Akane worriedly recalls she needs to help Yakumo and Yozaki and takes off running, while Tenma silently thinks it would be best not to help that duo. The hunter ponders that even having taken hits from the golem boss, they should be fine as long as they used basic recovery potions. Suddenly, Akane stops and alerts with a sharp whisper that she caught voices and that someone is right ahead in that dark chamber hall. Looking forward, they bump into the silhouette of a man laughing macabre over the lifeless body of the fallen tank Yakumo on the floor. Himuro praises the fight rhythm, catching that the two alone beat the Sphinx and the golem, while cleaning his knife dirty with Yakumo's blood. With a terrifying glare, the platinum villain demands the delivery of the demon source and cruelly warns them not to try playing dumb. Yozaki's bloodied body appears lying lifeless on the dungeon floor, revealing he was also coldly murdered by the psycho. Facing such brutality and the sight of her allies' lifeless bodies, Akane covers her mouth horrified. Shaking in pure terror at the scene, Tenma deduces the Black Knot Guild killers sent by Igarashi took advantage of the group's fatigue after the boss to swipe the demon source. Surprised by the young hunter's knowledge, the killer smiles and sarcastically comments he must know well that they belong to a criminal faction. Tenma flashes a confident smile and confirms he holds the demon source, challenging the opponent to try taking it from his hands by force. The guy locks his glare on the opponent, knowing he acts under orders from the traitor Igarashi, concluding he needs to draw all the killer's focus to himself. Mocking the young man's stance, the villain steps up laughing and says he must be drained from the back-to-back fights, deciding to wipe him out first. Bluntly and coldly, Tenma asks Akane if she is capable of killing that assassin, leaving the pink-haired girl completely terrified and confused. She freezes in fear at the shocking question, while Tenma pushes her, reminding her she wants to be a hero, and that man is a dangerous killer from a villain guild. The hunter calmly steps past her and drops hard advice, asserting that you can't save the world without getting your hands dirty in the process. Dropping a laugh of pure mock, the platinum assassin charges at absurd speed against the guy, swinging a fatal strike with his bloodied blade. With his sharpened level 11 perception triggered by the system, Tenma reads every millimeter of the opponent's move and readies calmly for fight. Using his level 11 agility and martial arts skills, the young hunter dodges lightly and drops a formidable sequence of counterattacks. At the end of the sequence, Tenma lands a devastating spin kick that hits the villain's chest dead on, launching him violently onto the stone floor. The killer skids across the sand, kicking up dust, and gets up instantly with an extremely furious face, catching the opponent's real superiority. Overcome with pure hatred, the killer charges crazed at him again, yelling at the top of his lungs that he's going to wipe him out first before slicing the pink-haired girl. Tenma draws his sword glowing with blue electricity and seriously concludes that Psycho also murdered his own allies, deciding he can't spare him. In the blink of an eye, a fine, bright blue energy line surgically cuts the advancing platinum assassin's exposed neck. With the flawless execution of the Tsukishiro style, straight cut, the Psycho's head is instantly severed, brutally ending the villain. The past hunter calmly sheathes his sword, while dust and blue energy sparks smoothly fade around his body. Akane complains shaking, saying he overdid it and should have just restrained him, but Tenma coldly replies that man cowardly murdered his allies. The hunter reflects that, although Yakumo and Yozaki would turn into terrible criminals in the future, right now they were just innocent D-rank warriors. With a gloomy, thoughtful face, he silently wonders if those two young hunters' fate would have been different had they stayed by his side. Deciding to put an end to the gloom, Tenma calls Akane to head out and calmly asserts their mission in that special dungeon was accomplished. Later, outside the dungeon portal in the middle of the night, two investigators in black suits wait anxious by the facility parking lot edge. Akane lets out a sigh of relief and says the nightmare finally ended, while the investigator duo in suits silently watches the two approach. One of the investigators thanks the guy's efforts and breaks down that he came on behalf of Kyosuke Sengoku, since the leader is currently resolving business overseas. The hunter extends his hand calmly and displays the rare relic he scored as the final drop, commenting he came to hand over the reward as agreed. The suit man confirms receipt of the valuable item and then suspiciously asks where the other two members who entered the portal are. Tenma coldly replies the other hunters perished during the run, getting an understanding nod from the investigator, who simply accepts the outcome. A system alert pops up suddenly before the dark-haired young man, making him lock his eyes on the virtual screen to review the data. The virtual display confirms progress on his D-rank limit break quest, making Tenma think to himself that now only 2 demon sources remain. He knows there are almost 0 clues on the locations of the next sources, and mentally concludes Sengoku's cooperation and contacts will be critical in this process. The pink-haired girl extends a small green wooden box locked with a golden padlock, handing the item to the guy as a surprise gift. She says he saved her life multiple times today, and that despite lacking the key to the rare chest, the item will definitely fetch a solid price if he decides to sell it. Back home, the hunter appears in his room wearing comfy pajamas and holding the green wooden box, eager to check its mysterious contents. The system breakdown shows the mysterious C+ rank chest is locked and guarantees dropping a totally random item if he manages to open it somehow. The past hunter drops a light, friendly smile, finding it super funny that the ghost thief of the ruined future actually handed him something of massive value. At that exact instant, he puts a hand in his coat pocket and feels a specific item immediately react to the locked chest's presence. It's the C-rank mana crystal key scored from Corrupt Gondo's office, which started glowing bright in response to the relic. He carefully inserts the glowing key into the green wooden box lock, wonderingly asking in a thoughtful tone what kind of rare reward will sprout from inside. Turning the key, the chest unlocks smoothly and pops open on its own, releasing an intense, bright stream of red light that fills the guy's room. The intense glow fades slowly and reveals the box interior holds just a mysterious tall glass vial packed with a strange red potion. Holding the X-rank red unicorn blood potion, the hunter reads on the system display that the liquid serves to unlock the true hidden potential of items. The young man instantly glances at his ring of defense, remembering it's the valuable growth-type artifact that belonged to the old army commander. He pulls the necklace off his neck and inspects the gray metal ring, aware that the item's main combat features still stay completely sealed. Confident, he opens the glass vial and drops a single droplet of unicorn blood directly onto the metallic surface of his unique rank growth ring. A bright reddish light fills the entire space, while alerts confirm the magic seal capping the ring's power was successfully broken. With a confident smile, the young man looks at the gem that has now transformed into the super rare growth ring named by the system as the Undefeated Ring. That exact cold night, the sound of a loud, fun female laugh echoes happily through one of the lit windows of the city's modern apartment buildings. Lying on the living room couch, the girl laughs nonstop and mocks her sister Yuna Shiragane over the funny fact that the elite hunter was ignored and left on red. Yuna holds a beer can and complains annoyed over the lack of a reply, confusedly recalling that it was the guy himself who asked for her contact number. The sister comments that the guy foresaw the portal pop up and cleared it solo, and Yuna confirms sighing that without him, everyone would be dead right now. Blushing light, Yuna decides to hide the fact that she nearly died to prevent her younger sister, who is super protective of her, from having a panic attack. The sister stands up from the couch and reminds her that the selection test for the prestigious Silverwing Guild is scheduled to hit in just 1 week. Facing the unexpected suggestion that she take the lead and call the guy herself, Yuna turns deep red and screams thoroughly surprised at the idea. Friendly, the younger sister offers to cover lunch if they manage to set a date, suggesting everyone finally group up for a casual city meetup. Super shy and flustered by the chat, Yuna replies, waving her hands energetically, that she won't call him and asks why they're suggesting that. The young hunter reveals with a smile that her true goal is actually recruiting the dark-haired guy to beef up the forces of her own guild. The next day, we see Tenma walking peacefully along the cobblestone walkways of the busy rustic area known as Artisan Street. The past hunter checks out the forge noise and blacksmith flames, thinking with nostalgia that this classic spot hasn't changed a single bit. Suddenly, his phone vibrates softly in his left hand, making the young man stop walking to check out the fresh text he received. He widens his eyes, seeing Sengoku deposited 12 million yen into his account, surprised noting he never made that much cash in his hunter life. He lets out a light sigh, knowing that to buy a full set of elite weapons that amount is tiny, deciding to start checking store displays. Suddenly, the guy's senses pick up threat yells and beatdown sounds in a nearby alley, making the young hunter shift his face. He spots a buff debt collector armed with a club violently beating a young blacksmith lying on the ground, demanding immediate cash return. Tenma watches him from afar by his typical apron clothes, deducing the guy getting cowardly beaten on the ground is actually one of the local blacksmiths there. However, focusing his vision better on the details of the beaten blacksmith's face, Tenma widens his eyes, instantly recognizing his real identity. The scarred collector raises the wooden club angrily and cruelly warns the blacksmith that talk is over and that today marks his end. Suddenly, at the absolute last second before the hit drops, a strong, firm hand grabs the buff collector's shoulder with major authority from behind. Tenma calmly asks for excuse and stops the beatdown, making the collector turn around annoyed, asking who he thinks he is and if he's friends with the beaten blacksmith. As a direct response without dropping a chance to defend, the young hunter lands a devastating right punch that hits the attacker's face with absolute precision. The punch is so heavy that the buff collector flies backward and violently collides into a store's wooden crates, dropping passed out in the alley. Tenma crouches before the injured young man in an apron and respectfully says it's an honor to meet him, leaving the blacksmith surprised he already knows his name. He recalls that, in the chaotic future, this humble blacksmith would be known worldwide as the sole genius creator of legendary grade gear. It's Koji Mochizuki, the man with whom Tenma mentally concludes that, as a past hunter, it's majorly worth keeping a solid friendship connection. Tenma extends his hand to help the fallen blacksmith up, remembering he is the only artisan in the country capable of forging growth gear. Both enter Mochizuki's humble blacksmith shop. Packed with metal tools and armor stacked neatly around the place, the blacksmith asks if he came as a customer, and Tenma nods, taking the chance to ask the reason for that violent alley collection. Mochizuki downplays the situation, saying embarrassed it's nothing serious, but Tenma silently thinks that beatdown didn't look like a joke. The young man reveals that artisans take loans to run their shops, and that a year ago, the dangerous Saihan Guild surfaced, led by Ryoma Oshino. He breaks down with sadness that the gang uses bogus contracts to seize their items and build infinite debt. Enslaving artisans who don't know how to fight. Mochizuki gives a thumbs up laughing, claiming he'll hold out for one more year, leaving Tenma shocked, noting the guy is still as silly as in the future. He recalls seeing the blacksmith in the future, already old, getting arrested and escorted by armed officers amidst a refugee camp riot. The old man babbled frantic that he needed to keep working the forges and crafting the absolute best gear possible for the hunters. Dragged away, the old blacksmith screamed desperate for his old work hammer, asserting he needed his classic tool back in the memories. Young Kyoya watched the scene beside Tenma and asked, curious if that old gentleman was the crazy guy everyone was chatting about. The old Tenma stood pretty tense and thoughtful at that situation, feeling the old blacksmith's obsession hid some super critical secret. The old man screamed with a maniac glare that his old hammer was waiting for him all this time, silently stashed in a dark warehouse. While guards pushed him and ordered him to keep walking, the blacksmith insisted, shouting that his tool was waiting for his return. Kyoya commented, shaking his head, that blacksmith was indeed crazy, while the old man's figure faded into the horizon, screaming for his tool. Tenma asked the reason for the arrest, and Kyoya revealed he allegedly attacked refugees to seize gems to use in crafting his gear. In the present, the young hunter reflects that back then he judged his screams as pure madness, but realizes everything he said about the hammer was real. Tenma asks directly if there is an old hammer stashed around here, leaving Mochizuki super surprised that he knows about that tool. Upon being asked about the classic tool's location, the blacksmith confesses, discouraged, that Saihan Guild boss Ryoma Oshino took the item. The hunter catches, the situation got complex. Since he expected to find the classic tool here and place it right back into the young blacksmith's hands, Mochizuki says he can recover the item if he clears the debt, but asks him not to worry, and Tenma asks what the exact bill amount is. The blacksmith timidly reveals he owes around 10 million yen, making Tenma exclaim, thoroughly shocked over the massive size of that debt. The blacksmith asks what he wished to score at the shop, and Tenma breaks down that as a hunter, his sole goal there is placing an order for a fresh item forge. With a discouraged, awkward face, Mochizuki warns with honesty that running that job will be extremely tough to do in the current spot. Suddenly, the blacksmith points terrified toward his shop entrance and whispers frantic that the Saihen Guild goons return to the spot. A squad of buff collectors armed with wooden clubs steps with heavy strides into the shop, yelling aggressively for the blacksmith's name. Spotting the young man who attacked him earlier in the alley right beside the blacksmith, the scarred goon yells, instantly catching his boss's focus. He points his finger toward Tenma accusingly, loudly confirming with major anger that it was that exact guy who beat him. Boss Ryoma Oshino takes firm steps toward the hunter, stating with a mocking tone that he finally found the guy who's been hitting his men. The gang leader sharply asks who he thinks he is to jump into his business turf and cause so many problems for his ops. The villain intimidatingly warns that if the guy doesn't want to lose his life messing where he wasn't called, his best play is bouncing out of there. Observing the Saiyan gang leader's features closely, Tenma catches a strange vibe that he already crossed paths with this man in the past. The hunter decides to trigger his system level 10 memory search skill, diving into his old memories to figure out his identity. He recalls Kyosuke Sengoku handing him a badge in the ruined future, vaguely commenting that some people were trying to please him. With future memories totally cleared in his mind, Tenma finally recalls that gang's link to the badge and grabs his phone. While the gang boss keeps intimidating him, telling him to vanish out of there, the guy simply dials a number on his device and kicks off a voice call. Tenma starts the chat saying he needs an urgent problem cleared at the shop and asks the person on the other end if they can help him out. The guy starts dropping the exact address of Mochizuki's blacksmith shop, leaving Oshino confused and intrigued by the bold young hunter's move. Feeling insulted by the phone call, the Saihen gang boss angrily commands his armed goons to step up and drop a painful lesson on the guy. Cool and cold, Tenma holds the phone straight toward the gang leader, calmly alerting that the person on the line wants to talk to him, majorly annoyed. Oshino snatches the device from his hand and sharply asks what he thinks he's babbling in the middle of a violent debt collection. The boss puts the device to his ear and stands completely spooked, hearing Kyosuke Sengoku's voice introducing himself on the line, making him turn pale on the spot. Shaking in pure terror upon recognizing the S-rank elite hunter's authority, the gang leader submissively replies saying he got the orders. Desperate to follow Sengoku's immediate order, Oshino screams at the top of his lungs at his buff goons to let go of the young blacksmith and freeze everything now. The gang leader completely flips his stance and hands the phone back to Tenma with a kiss-up smile, saying he should have mentioned Sengoku earlier. Next we see Tenma's hand firmly gripping the rustic, cracked stone hammer that belonged to Mochizuki's classic work tool set. He displays the recovered classic tool facing Oshino's nervous glare and mockingly asks if that was the specific item he was talking about. With the other hand, the hunter pulls the small vial holding the unicorn blood out of his pajama pocket, prepping to execute his master plan. He analyzes the X-rank awakening potion in his left hand and satisfied concludes that even using the liquid now, a few drops will still remain in the vial. Confident, the hunter drops a single glowing droplet of the reddish liquid onto the worn surface of Mochizuki's stone hammer to awaken its power. The system alerts that the old hammer returned to its original form, and the hunter scores the unique grade item known as the legendary Daedalus hammer Tenma displays, with satisfaction the powerful hammer now fully restored, which radiates a massive, glowing reddish energy across the whole shop. The young blacksmith watches the scene completely in shock and speechless, unable to believe his old work tool was restored like that. Mochizuki accepts the hammer back, but confusedly asks the guy the reason why he's pulling all this to help him out. Tenma simply points at the guild leader and reminds him with seriousness that Mochizuki's shop total debt was exactly 10 million yen. He breaks down that he cleared the blacksmith's debt with the collector and took ownership of the stone tool as payout, so the hammer now belongs to him. Desperate over losing his precious forged treasure, the blacksmith begs saying he'll pull any favor if the guy just lets him use the hammer. With a light-side smile, seeing his deal play is working flawless. The guy comments that if he really wants the hammer that bad, he extends a paper sheet and proposes Mochizuki sign a formal employment contract to start working exclusively under his orders. Skip thinking twice or even asking questions, the young blacksmith quickly snatches the employment contract out of Tenma's hands in an impulsive move of despair. He signs and stamps the document on his counter at absurd speed, leaving the past hunter shocked by such haste and determination. Tenma tries holding him back and warns him to hold up a bit, but Mochizuki ignores and starts spinning his newly acquired Daedalus hammer with pure joy. With an ear-to-ear smile and crying with emotion, the young blacksmith sets up before his iron anvil, eager to get back to work. Crossing his arms seriously, the Saihin guild leader alerts out loud for the young artisan not to forget the pending commitment with them. The gang boss calls out the blacksmith, saying that now that he recovered his work tools, he needs to drop the ordered weapons real fast. Mochizuki rests the heavy stone hammer's head on the counter and abruptly stops his activity to answer the gang leader's collection call. The young blacksmith awkwardly asks what he should do, and Oshino replies annoyed, ordering him to hurry up and start forging the weapons. Mochizuki explains he will need at least one fair-sized C-rank magic crystal, making the gang boss yell enraged in the middle of the room. He yells furious that deliveries are late and that they'll lose ownership of an important portal, telling him to use any F-rank material for the forge. The blacksmith stubbornly insists that the mana crystal needs to be big, leaving the gang leader with a massive headache due to lacking options. Tenma steps into the chat and asks if that portal is sea level, and the boss, frustrated, confirms the clear plans blew up due to the crisis. The young hunter calmly volunteers to help clear the portal as support, and Oshino sharply asks what his actual rank is. Crossing his arms with total calm, the guy directly replies that his current registration rank at the association is merely D rank. Sometime later, we see Oshino holding his sword and his round wooden shield in the middle of a dungeon's massive green hills and field stage. The man seriously checks out the surroundings, humbly remembering that he himself is also registered in the D-rank fighter tier. The Saihin gang leader widens his eyes and trembles, seeing dozens of green monsters lying lifeless on the floor, while Tenma simply walks off peacefully. Contemplating Tenma's sword wrapped in a powerful, glowing blue lightning stream, Oshino asks in his thoughts who that terrifying guy actually is.